Hello all, John Atkinson again here, doing another interview for the Circumcision Harms docu-series. I'm doing another interview, and today I have Eric with us. Eric, please introduce yourself and tell us about how you got involved in this movement.
Hi, my name is Eric Sudarth. I live in Oklahoma, and I'm 38 years old. I have four kids. My oldest is a girl, and then I have three boys. And I've been married to my wife for, oh goodness, 17 years now. So,
And how did you get involved in the movement, the genital autonomy
well,
movement, or intactivist movement, however you want to, whichever term you want to use?
I I think you could say it was a bit organic. Like I didn't, I was never exposed to anything other than boys get circumcised, and uh and I never really heard of many other countries not being circumcised. It was just kind of like that's what we do, especially in the Christian background. Like I grew up Christian, so it's just kind of like, well, they talk about circumcision in the Bible, and I don't know, something about Abraham and his son, and then you know, and all those things. So I had my first child was a girl, thank God,
Yeah.
because where I'm at now, I don't. So I'll just fast forward to my son because we he was a week old. No, he's 10 days old, and we just had him 10 days old, and we just assumed, okay, circumcision, right? Where do we do that? When does that happen?
Hmm.
And they're like, well, you go to the thing here, the clinic, and you get that. We put down $300, and
So they didn't push it on you at the hospital?
not I don't remember them really pushing it, but they had it available. But yeah, they weren't really pushing it at this hospital. It was in California, Salinas, California.
Oh, okay. That's where I'm at, California.
Oh, for real? Okay, cool. Yeah.
That's
So
interesting.
they didn't really push it, but we walked in, and he was a pretty big kid. I forget exactly how much he weighed, but he was big enough that the board was just too small. Like they wouldn't they wouldn't be able to strap him down. And I was like, well, I started looking at the board, man. I'm looking at the shape of it, and I'm like,
The
man,
circumstraint. Yeah.
yeah. It can I should ask you earlier. Can I cuss on this because I'm
Yeah.
a
Oh,
bit
yeah.
of a potty mouth?
No,
So,
no, go ahead, man.
um,
Feel free.
but it so the board is small and it has all these straps, and I start thinking, what exactly does this imply? Now, these weren't the thoughts in my actual head, like right, like as I'm articulating them now. It was more of an image of, well, it's going to take people to hold this. Well, I mean, I think about it. Like, even if I gently pinch my son's leg when he's that young, he feels it.
It just reacts. Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, like, so hey, doc, real quick, that's a small board. You guys are gonna have to figure things out. But what can I see the tools? Like, how does this work? And of course, they're sanitized and everything, they're supposed to be sanitary. So I think I remember him something like show me a picture of some kind of clamp device or something. I don't remember exactly. I just was kind of like, okay, now, so what about, like, you certainly you numb them, right? Well, I was like, so he feels it. He feels it like I would feel it, right? And I was halfway tempted to just kind of pinch my own genitals just to feel
Yeah.
like, yeah, no, I was halfway tempted to just be like, yeah, no, because I'm like really thinking like, no, Eric, there's no difference between you now feeling that and him here feeling that. Like, he's going to feel it. And I was just like, okay, that's weird. But so I was asking him, okay, what exactly do we circumcise for? And
Question.
I don't really remember the answer, other than I was getting all these other ambulatory red flags,
Hmm.
reading his body language.
Wow.
Thankfully, he was honest,
That's
but
good.
there was a bit of like reluctance in the respect that he knew that he was causing trauma that he believed. these kids eventually, they grow up and they develop out of. Now, this is not what he said to me. This is what I'm picking up from. I'm just kind of getting this vibe from him, like a reluctance, but this is what I do. I'm kind of, I don't know, obviously cognitively dissident,
Yeah.
but he was, just like this vibe from him. And I realized, like, I need some time to think about this. I went and I talked to my pastor, and I was going to the church, at the time. And he was like, man, dude, like, really, like, in the US, like, it's mostly in the US, around the world, they don't. And there's no real reason, he was a Foursquare Baptist, or I don't know, Foursquare church.
Okay.
No, it was well, whatever. So it was, so he was like, man, it's just, there's not really a good reason to do it other than, like, you can, if you feel like you need to, type of thing. How you get it all the time from people, like, hey, it's your kid, do what you want, type of thing. But once I realized that, like, my faith was kind of released of that at the time, I was just kind of like, okay, I'm not fucking that up, so I don't care about that anymore. And what's this other stuff about hygiene? Like, is it really, like, is this how you solve the problem? Is through circumcision? And I was like, no, I don't want to do this. This is, and of course, now this was after talking to the pastor, I realized, like, okay, I don't want to do this. But rewind back to the doctor's office. We were like, well, we're not going to do that. We're going to go ahead and we're just not going to do this. He's like, okay, well, all right. And I was like, you ever had parents come in, ask questions, and not go through this? He's like, that's never happened. No one's ever come in, see the scene, ask questions, and say, oh yeah, oh shit, okay, now I realize what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of surreal. And looking back, it was just like seeing my son now. He's turning 14 real soon. And I'm just like, thank God, dude. Like, I caught it. I caught that moment that every other guy usually misses, and just kind of like, rationality and things and reasons. And I didn't have to traumatize my boys. Like, I strongly believe, like, I'm gonna leave my mark. I'm gonna fuck things up as a dad. I already have that going against me. You know what I mean? Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
But man, do you really have to start there? Like, that's a hell of a place to start. Not protecting your kid and the autonomy of their body.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, well, he's going to get bullied later on, in school or whatever.
Fuck?
It's like, I'm like, well, that's really okay. So first of all, you're going to be your child's first bully, and you're going to tell them that consent doesn't matter.
Right.
and to give in to bullies.
Right. Yeah.
You're telling him 3 bad things that a parent should not be teaching his kid.
Whatever you got to do. Life is so hard out there, and I'm such a pussy ass bitch. You got to be like me. Okay. You got to mutilate yourself to fit in with these assholes, these people you don't even like.
Yeah.
You got to mutilate yourself. Yeah. That nothing makes me want to give a big fucking finger to the world.
Yeah.
Bigger, more than that, because it's just like,
I agree.
It's insane. Absolutely insane. So I got 3 boys now.
Awesome,
and
man. All intact.
Fully intact.
You got one more than I have.
Is that right?
I have 2 teenage boys, 14 and 15 right now. Yeah.
That's cool, man. Now, did you brighten up? Did you know before your first boy?
My story wasn't as close to the edge as yours. First of all, religion was not really a player in my mind at all, because I strongly believe in religious freedom, and I believe that belongs to the individual. So I wouldn't do it. I even got into it a little bit with my wife about baptism. It's like, you're kind of forcing religion on them. It's like, I'm fine with teaching them about religions.
Absolutely.
And if they choose to do baptism, or even circumcision or whatever, that I think that should be up to them.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't want to just like implicate it onto them.
Right? I get you. Right.
So and then the medical side of it, I just kind of assumed I was trusting the medical profession, and I was kind of trusting of society in general. I had no
Right.
idea that
Exactly.
was primarily just a U.S. thing, and that other
Right.
countries like Europe stopped it because they realized, well, it's really just cosmetic at the very least, and mutilation at the worst, right?
Hmm.
I didn't never studied any of it, and my wife's OB, she was originally going to go with an OB and do a hospital birth. Um, her OB was a little bit condescending toward her, and he was older and kind of just I don't know, treated her like her little girl, patting her on her head kind of thing, and that kind of turned her off. So she started looking for midwives and started looking into home
Nice.
births and all that stuff.
Nice.
And the midwife provided information. I think this is one of the things that we got. We got another one too, but inside of there's Dr. Paul Fleiss, who is one of the many regret doctors, regret medical professionals that used to do them.
Wow.
I actually
Right.
interviewed Christiane Northrup, who's another doctor that used to do them, and she's formally apologized and all that.
Hmm.
But I mean, if I was close by to the hospital, I'd probably go protest in front of it every single day, just because. Because
Right. Right.
it just pisses me off that what he did was he asked a question, and she was kind of like, "Well, shouldn't we, or should we not? I mean, doctor, tell me, give me some information." He gave her nothing.
Yeah.
Didn't offer anything. So that is not informed consent. There's no
No.
information there at all.
Right.
So yeah, I get really pissed at the doctors and hospitals and clinics that do this, that don't provide. They should be telling people the anatomy and the functions. And
Right.
and I even get at, especially since my kids are in middle school and high school, I've been going after the school districts locally, saying, okay, I want to look at a sex ed material, and I want to be able to give feedback to the authors.
Right.
They still haven't given me a copy, so I still have to go fight that battle some more yet. But well, my youngest has still got 4 years in high school, so I still got all the time.
So you're telling me that the information that they're providing is not very accurate?
It's incomplete and misleading. Right. Even medical textbooks. There's actually a guy here in LA that did a full-on study of a whole bunch of medical textbooks, and I could pull it up and share it with you sometime if you want to. But I even talked to the guy in person. But it found that a huge amount of medical textbooks are horribly lacking on this, and it would even be just, oh, that's the foreskin. It's normally cut off during circumcision. That's all it says.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Like, it's no wonder some medical professionals go on thinking, oh, it's just extra flap of skin that we cut off.
Right.
Get rid of. It's just problematic. It's
right.
It's so wrong. I don't know how this ever got that far in the first place. I mean, at some point, that you would think that intact medical professionals would say, hey, this is BS. Let's fix this.
Yeah.
But somehow it's gone on for years.
Definitely a place to start. Yeah, it's definitely a place to start.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I got through high school and I started working, so I'm not well educated. Yeah. But it seems like to me that when it comes to like men's health and like all that stuff, sexual health,
mm-hmm.
the material is pretty sparse.
Yeah.
And obviously, and we're talking about circumcision, you obviously know how sparse that is, but like you're saying, start with the textbook, start with the material, start with the information.
Yeah.
Because it's lacking.
Yeah. I've attended 2 meetings now, one with each one with different school districts, because we moved recently. And I gave them feedback, particularly the most recent one, and said, well, you guys are saying that you are avoiding certain things like religion and stuff like that because you don't want to piss off parents, obviously. But the fact that you use the word circumcised, that is already saying, that word is so loaded in the first place already.
Yeah, it's built to manufacture consent.
Yeah.
you know, because
Exactly.
it's a cleaned up
It's
version of what it is.
Yeah, it's a euphemism.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you look at the term and look at the Latin roots. You look at incise and excise. Circumcised is just another one of those. You know,
Mm-hmm.
cut into, cut away, and cut around.
Right. Right. Exactly right.
That's all it really means. And even if you look at the religious text, I don't know how it became just the term, the word, but
Yeah.
in the religious text it says circumcise the flesh of the foreskin.
Right.
I don't. I bet foreskin wasn't even the original word. It just
Sure.
became that. And then later on, in Jewish text, you can find this on little images.org. It's lay bare the glands, and that's when they decided to do more than just cut the very tip off. They completely lay bare
Right.
the glands, right? So
Gotcha.
it's here's my mock penis, and
Right.
there's the glands, right?
Right.
So they started laying that bare because they didn't
Mm.
want guys to try to cover up the glands, and they wanted to make sure that Jews were completely separated from everyone else.
Right.
So, yeah. So, anyways, yeah. So that kind of got me started, but it took me many years to really ask a lot of questions and trust, because
Mm-hmm.
I was dubious. I was like, okay, this article is interesting. It's telling me that things are done this way, that way, and the reasons behind things, all that. It's like, okay, so that's one article from one doctor. Let's go
Right.
get some other information from other places, and most of all, what I was most interested in is hearing from intact guys. Well, is it really cleaner? Is
Right.
does that thing do something? Why isn't adult men getting it cut off? If all these benefits are really true and great and all that.
Right.
And learning the history and all that. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, I find the stories from I find information from intact guys pretty valuable, being circumcised myself.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know exactly what to look for with my boys. They're growing up, so I'm just kind of like, I don't even know what you're dealing with down there. I had to talk to my son, like, dude, like, look, because we talk on Twitter about really what essentially, like, a lot of reasons for circumcising your kids is that you're too afraid to talk to your kids.
Yeah.
Like, like, I don't want to have awkward conversations. Like, dude, you don't have to be that awkward. Just say, hey, look, I got to talk to you about some stuff, and it has to do with your genitalia. However you want to phrase it, if you straight up, obviously being straight up and more clinical is best, but being straightforward.
Yeah.
Now, look, we don't have to look at anything or touch anything, but what we need to talk about is you need to look out for, I don't know, whatever, because I don't have the same gear as you have. I didn't get that choice.
Yeah.
So you've got a little extra skin down there. So I talked to him about, like, look out for this, whatever the case is. And we go down that road, but it doesn't have to be awkward. Yeah. It's just conversation, educate them. Now, if you're already intact, then you already know what you're talking about. But for me, I've got to fumble around in the fucking dark because I didn't get this, I don't have the information, and I got to do a bunch of work to talk to a bunch of other awkward dudes about how, I got a foreskin, and well, I don't. I got questions.
Yeah. We're raised to, think that, talking about sex is taboo, and even religion and stuff like that. So talking about this, we're raised to be uncomfortable about it, and it shouldn't be that way. And I think that's what leads to a lot of bad outcomes, is that parents aren't talking to their kids. So I don't know if there is a video on my YouTube channel where I actually talked to my own teenage boys about the reasons behind it all and why we left them intact and stuff like that.
Okay, so you have a YouTube channel?
Yeah, that's where this is gonna go. I've got
cool. I'm gonna check that out.
100 and some videos.
Awesome. I'm all over YouTube. I only know you on Twitter, so I mean, I watch a shit ton of YouTube.
Yeah, so. If you can look up my my ID, the same Twitter ID, on TikTok and on Instagram, and
right on.
Either that or my first and last name. I use my own real name and all that. So
cool.
I'm not shying away from being
you're
public
not you're
about this.
You're not a fucking avatar.
Yeah,
that I like dealing with on fucking Twitter, man. These people with they've got a avatar for a picture and some numbers and digits for their name.
Yeah. You don't
And
know
they're
who they
telling you
are.
what a piece of shit you are. And it's like, dude,
Yeah, it means
you're
more
fucking
when it's
avatar.
coming
Like, I
from
don't
a
even
real
know. You're not
person.
even real. I'm a
Yeah.
real person. I'm sitting here dealing with real fucking life.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like your arguments of all your reasons to protect the people that abused you or were complicit to abuse, you know, because we're insistent. Circumcision is sexual abuse.
Yeah.
Sexual assault.
Yeah. People
And
say no way.
when you tell me it's different, you know, when you tell me it's not, oh, it's not that, oh, you know, I know it's bad, but come on, you have to call it sexual assault.
Yeah. I call it sexual battery.
Yeah, sexual battery. Very good.
Because you're actually cutting. You know, you're not like slapping.
It's even better.
Or,
yeah.
Or
right.
penetrating, or it also involves penetrating.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's battery. It's right out battery.
Yeah. So I think that when you start doing that, people get really nervous because they're like, well, okay, like I'm against circumcision and I would never do it to my boys, but you shouldn't call it this because, well, why is it? Tell me why. Tell me why I shouldn't. Is it because that means your mom was complicit in sexual assault? Was that because your dad was complicit in sexual assault? Your brother, your sister? And as soon as you say, well, yeah, maybe it is true, someone's going to jump on you and say, or whatever, you know, you're protecting somebody.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in
dissonance starts kicking in, right?
I'm not. Yeah, exactly. And you shouldn't be interested in defending somebody that can perfectly defend their own actions, unlike a child, unlike a baby that has no ability to tell you to stop. And he's doing everything he can to tell you to stop, but you won't fucking listen. You won't look at what he's dealing with. You won't look at what's going on. You know?
Yeah. People, will often write off babies screaming, crying because, well, hey.
Right. Oh, they're just uncomfortable or whatever. It's like, no, you don't understand.
Yeah.
I understand babies cry.
Not
They
like
don't
that.
just cry for no reason, though. You know? And what that's the cognitive dissonance there too. It's like, there's a difference in crying with when your kid's in real pain versus, but it's just kind of like, well, the doctor said it's okay. So, and he's going to be all right. And throughout his life, we'll be sure that I manufacture consent about my decision to cutting his foreskin as he grows up. Oh, you don't want to look strange. You would be bullied or whatever, blah, 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 blah. All these things, like you wouldn't be able to defend yourself because you're too weak, like your father. You're like, what the, I'm asserting, what I do is I pull out, like, what are you trying to say?
Yeah.
Are you saying I couldn't defend my own manhood? Like, what is it? What is your excuse? Whatever excuse you have, it's not good enough. Like, I didn't get a choice.
Yeah.
And it affects me. Like, no one wants to talk about what it does to your sex life. Like, it's not good. Like, the women, what, I gotta add a bunch of lubrication. That's not, you know what I mean? It's like, that's not natural. Well, sure, that's fine. If you want to use, I'm not against anybody that wants to use lubrication. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to if I don't want to. My wife's anatomy is delicate compared to my anatomy. Yeah. Well, the foreskin would be really helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as a victim, survivor, however you want it, whatever word you want to use for this, right. And it's not something that we're going to want to talk about much, right?
No.
Because it reminds us that this is for victims, our victimhood.
Yeah, there's that. I'm good with being stoic. I can't change what happened. And I don't hate my parents because, in my situation, my certain situation, they said, you know what, if we knew what you're telling us now, we wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, that's it's good enough for me.
Yeah.
It went beyond that.
But
that's the gist of the conversation.
Yeah.
And that's good. And then it's like, okay, that's good enough for me. Maybe I can look into restoration, all that, cool stuff. Seems like some guys are talking about it, and maybe I'll look into it. But, that it's like, people want to tell you, don't complain. You're being everyone's got to be a victim and whatnot. It's like, dude, it's not sure. I mean, okay, fine. I'm a victim of it. Who the fuck else would know? Who else would know?
Yeah, exactly.
No one else is asking questions. Circumcision scar.
Yeah.
Jackson, J Jackson.
Yeah. Okay. He's actually on Twitter. You
Right
can
on.
find. I tweeted with him a lot, and I was very proud that he sent me one of the copies.
Dude, that's awesome. I'll check that
Yeah,
out.
yeah. I actually got to meet him too at one of the norm meetings happen in LA. We do in person meetings once a month. So,
Right.
yeah.
So what does he cover in that book?
Well, as you saw, it was pretty thick.
Yeah.
He tells he he's angry, and he really hates that religion was forced on him. The way he sees it is a religion
Mm.
was forced on him. So, and he also talks about his restoration process. He didn't just do restoration with tugging and stretching. He actually went to a surgeon to have some plastic surgery done,
Oh,
which helped a
did he
little bit
graft
of the
skin
process.
on, or
He like there's a stretched skin elsewhere first, and
okay?
then they grafted.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Now that
but
doesn't replace a lot of the anatomy that would be located in there, right? Am I right?
not
Okay,
at all.
so
Yeah, absolutely.
no, so it's really more decorative. Is it any functional at
Well,
all?
he does now have he has coverage at this point after he's done the restoration, stretching and all that, and
Mm,
his glands has become moist and smoother and all that. So yeah, but you don't have the nerves and not the same nerves, and you
gotcha.
don't the glands that are in there, not the GLANS glands, the head of the penis, but glands
Right.
that create the lubrication and everything.
Indeed,
It doesn't necessarily come back the same way.
it's not there.
I'll go into this as we go into it some more down the line here, but there's different ways that are. You saw a clamp or a tool
Mhm.
at the doctor. I'm betting it was either a Mogen clamp, Gomco clamp, or maybe a Plastibell. But it sounds like you were talking. It was like a metal device, right?
Like I said, I can't remember exactly what he showed me, but I know he showed me some instrumentation,
Hmm.
and I didn't get to hold on to it mentally as much as I would have liked to have.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't realize that again it's not just a flap of skin. I mean even your eyelid is just a flap of skin, but you look
Yeah.
at your eyelid, it's got two sides to it. It's got the mucosal side that's on your eye, and you have
Oh
the
goodness.
outer skin, right? And
Right.
the forward skin, the prepuce, I don't even like calling it foreskin because that implies a couple things. One is that it's just skin, and that
Mm,
it's it's FRE before the penis. Well, they're cutting out the whole prepuce,
gotcha.
so because you know they're coming down here and not up here.
I
And
understand.
that gets to the word acropation. So I had John Geisler do a presentation. And he talked about acropation. And he put up an image of I think a Greek statue, and it showed the acropation hanging off the end of his penis. So it was
Right.
the penis. So and that would have been the part that would have been cut off,
Mm,
original biblical times. If
that's a
you want.
pretty small part compared to what we do now.
Very tiny
Damn.
compared to what is removed now. I mean, now we're talking about 15 square inches, or
Yeah.
12 to
Oh
12 to
Jesus.
something.
Yeah. Right.
What's missing
That's a
from
that's a
assault.
lot of tissue to
Yeah, yeah.
peel
Because
off.
when you follow this, it's like I'm putting my fingers right where the base of the glands is,
Right.
and that's where they aim to cut, right? And you pull that down,
Mm.
and well, look at that, right?
Man,
That's a lot. That's
that's a
like
ton.
I went from the top to the bottom of of my.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's a whole lot,
insane.
right? Because it unfolds. It's two times the skin that you see it's being removed because
Right.
it's folded forward. Right.
Right.
So, but what a lot of people don't understand is that there's multiple parts to this. It's not again, it's not just skin. You have the mucosal part that was up here covering the glands, right? And then you have the
Right.
outer layer, and then you kind of have what they call the ridge band that is got this has the fascia that's kind of like a muscle. It squeezes down, so it closes off at the end of the penis when things are in its natural state, and it kind of creates like a one-way valve. It lets stuff out, but nothing
Right.
lets stuff in, which is really important when you're dealing with a baby and a diaper,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Especially poopy, runny, poopy
Right.
diapers, right? So, and I was a question I was wanting to ask you. You changed their diapers, right?
Right.
Right. So, was it difficult to clean their pee-pee?
Dude, I was waiting for it to get difficult.
It
I was
wasn't,
like,
was
so
it?
This is pretty. I mean, when does it? When does it start? When do I run into like this strange problem where I'm like, oh shit, what do I do? We're gonna have to see a doctor about this one.
Yeah.
You know, dude, it never happened.
Any UTIs?
Every now and then, like redness at the tip and whatnot. It's like, okay, and usually by then it's like,
Bath
all right, bud, we need to make sure that you're getting nice and clean, and they're usually able to communicate at that point. Even when they're in their diapers and not able to talk, you can see, if there's something wrong. And as a kid, as they're babies, it was, well, we changed their diapers, consistently,
Yeah.
and never had any issues. Now I don't remember any real UTIs or anything that weren't solved easily, if any.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the main excuses. It reduces the chances of UTIs during the first year of life. And okay, well, what's the chance of UTIs in the first place? I mean, what other body parts are going to cut off to prevent something that might happen?
Yeah.
This is the only body part that the medical profession is trying to push on people to remove that body part.
Right, but what does a foreskin really have to do with getting a UTI? I mean, is it really that much involved?
Well, a lot of people think, well, okay, so there's a space where things get into, and then it grows, and it's like, well, how about vaginas? How does that work? And
I was
how
just
about
gonna
your
say,
ears and your nose?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Or your eyelids? Come on, there's some self-cleaning functionality all there, and
sure,
the urine cleans things out and all that. So Mother Nature knows what she was doing. So yeah.
No, she didn't. God dang, man.
I mean, some people say, "Well, John, you're that's a fallacy, a debate fallacy, appealing to nature."
Sure.
It's like, okay, well, you know what? I'm appealing to nature before I'm appealing to the authority of doctors. I'm sorry. Thank you very much, because doctors have made lots of freaking mistakes, like lobotomies and bloodletting and other stuff like that.
Right.
In history. So
yeah, exactly. And well, it's just absurd. Like even then, it's like, well, yeah, that could happen within the first year of life. 12 months. I'll just be careful with my kid.
Yeah,
and
antibiotics.
And I won't take any surgical instruments to their genitals. It's 12 months. I know I got to work. I have a job. I got a house payment to make and all that stuff. But I think I can. I think I can forego the mutilation for 12 months of making sure that my kid's diaper's clean.
Yeah. My biggest fear, even though my kids are grown up and all, my biggest fear is daycares and medical professionals telling parents to forcefully retract. Because as you know, that's attached. I can't believe that is still going on. I actually called around to a whole bunch of daycares in my area and say, hey, how do you guys handle an intact penis? And the interesting thing around here is that a large percentage of the daycares in this area are Hispanic, Mexican people running them, right?
Sure,
absolutely. Well, they don't. It hasn't been part of their culture, and I mean, they're mostly Catholic, but it had most of the Hispanic guys are intact,
right?
So they know not to forcefully retract. It's you just
there you go,
like a finger. But I did come across, and of course, I'm not trying to be racist here. It's just a reality. One of the daycares I called, I could clearly tell it was a white woman, and at least that was the voice. And they said, yeah, we pull back. Like, no.
Wow.
No. So I referred to them to all the websites and all that. So
yeah.
Step up.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, I would be livid.
And AAP is complicit in this, because I found out who trains the daycare workers. So I contacted the people that train the daycare workers so they get their license and everything. I said, well, so how do you guys train this? And they're like, oh, well, we go by the AAP documentation. You look at the AAP documentation, it talks nothing about specifically how to clean specific genitalia. It's all this other general crap, but nothing about specifically how to clean the vulva, or how to wipe in that.
Oh wow!
Spot or anything. It's like, are you guys really that sensitive that you can't address that taboo thing to talk about how to clean children's genitalia? So yeah,
Yeah.
AAP is yeah, the
Oh,
AAP needs to fix that.
that's disappointing. I mean, fortunately, we were enlightened early about the retraction. We didn't know either, but it seemed like it was a nurse that
Oh,
advised us.
good. That's good to hear.
I'd have to ask my wife more information on that, or if she knew. I don't know. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, we got lucky. We really did. I can sit here and I kind of feel like super dad sometimes because I'm like, ha, I did it. But
You deserve it, man.
honestly, I really got lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, I know you're not on Facebook, but I have a group called Cut Dads with Intact Sons, and I've got like 134 guys on that
Oh,
group.
cool.
So it's like, it feels good every time I admit another person.
Hell
like,
yeah, dude.
woohoo!
Hell yeah.
Hi, my man.
Well, I have a Facebook profile. I'll go on there at least, maybe join the group
Okay.
at the very least.
Awesome. That'd be great. Yeah, and it's a public group, so the
Cool.
whole idea was that other intactivists could say, "Here, check it out. There's actually men that have, cut guys that
Right.
broke the cycle."
Yes.
So
Yeah, that's a big difference too. I mean, because that's a big switch to make.
yeah,
You
it
know?
is. Yeah, it's. I mean, we ran into our own cognitive. I talked to some men in person, even that were. You could see their cognitive dissonance hit. Right. It's like I'm fine. No, my buddies, they're all cut too, and they're all
Right.
fine. Like,
Right.
yeah, dude, but you have no idea what you're missing.
You have no idea. What do you don't even know what you're talking about?
Yeah, and you don't have any idea how psychologically affected you.
Right.
I don't know if you had a chance to read Ronald Goldman's book, but he really, this book, he could rewrite the title, and because it's like I read through it all. My wife is a trained doula, and she's all open about genital birth and stuff like that. Again, our sons were born at home and stuff like that. And
Oh, okay, cool. We had one home birth.
how did you?
Yeah, we did.
So it's like really it's about avoiding trauma during birth and as an infant all across the board. And there's tons of studies in there. Like 1/3 of the book is nothing but references to sources. So and like there's a whole bunch of other professionals that he refers to when he's talking about these things. It's not just all coming from one person, from him.
Does he talk about the psychological effects trauma, like birth time trauma, can have on a developing infant and growing up in the adult years? See, I think about that. Often I don't remember my circumcision. Obviously, well, I don't know how obvious that is, but I certainly don't.
Yeah.
But
I mean, not not in the forefront of your head, obviously.
Exactly right.
But there are cases where some have remembered, and there's several cases. I'm one of these that and Jay from that wrote the book also have talked about dreams, and we kind of figured out, when we look at our dreams, it's like there's nothing else that happened early in childhood that would have led to these dreams. For Jay, it's like these faces hovering over him, and you can read the whole. You have to read the whole thing.
Wow.
He went step by. It took him a while to put pieces together. Realized, there's definitely that. And for me, for the longest time, even into my 20s, I would have this dream where I was like, I couldn't move, right? And someone was approaching me, and I knew something was about to happen to me that was bad, and I couldn't run or couldn't get away or whatever. And of course, I'd always wake up right before it would happen, and I'd be in this horrible sweat and cold sweat and all that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's intense.
Yeah.
Well, and so I have a hard time just remembering my dreams as it is. Now you have this dream, you're able to, it's, like you said, it's your memory of your circumcision. That like, I don't think that just because you can't remember your circumcision, that it doesn't affect you psychologically. It doesn't affect the way you make decisions, the way you trust or don't trust.
Yeah.
The way you apply love, hate, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You could be greatly affected.
Yep. Absolutely.
Of course, you know,
Yeah,
I don't know what it.
yeah, some people blame toxic masculinity on it.
Sure,
So
sure.
yeah,
How about
and
toxic humanity?
yeah, and Ron says that there's a lot more studies that can be done to help prove this one way or another or whatever. So, but
Right.
yeah, there's definitely clear evidence that there's harm going on at the very least during the early years, and affecting people. So.
Right.
Hi. So we talked a little bit about acropation, and we, you and I both know now, after particularly talking with intact men, that that's sensitive skin, and it's been proven via the Sorrells study. I don't know why it needed to be. It's like, yeah, there's all these intact men out there in the world that say, yeah, that's sensitive. You touch that, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, it's going to turn me on. Don't do that. You're turning me on.
Exactly. Yeah. I thought it was numb. I thought it would.
Yeah.
Good grief, man.
Yeah.
So funny.
And that it is there protecting the glands. Even the AAP, the very first policy statement back in 1971, I think, by the AAP, said that it's there to protect the glands. Like, whoa, well, I guess the glands are supposed to be covered most of the time, just like your tongue is inside your mouth most of the time. So, and are you a mechanical guy at all, like in engineering?
Yeah, I'm quite mechanical.
So you get what rolling bearing means, then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this acts like a rolling bearing.
Right. Exactly.
So you don't have any friction as you go inside a hole.
Right.
Right. And
I don't know. I don't know what that's like.
Yeah, I don't either. I wish I did. It would be so cool to feel that. That would be really interesting. And this isn't perfect, but the idea is that this is like close off down here, at the end, right?
Right.
Because yarn isn't very stretchy, so but it's closed off like that. So I just imagine, I did a video on this, and I'll just explain it. So it's like you just try to stick your finger inside your fist. It's you feel the friction right away. Right. So what I did was I took a rubber glove and cut off the finger part. Okay. And I stuck a little bit of double-sided tape on the end of my finger to act like the glands, which
like a membrane.
is immobile. It's supposed to stay there, right? But everything else is supposed to glide. So I put that on, put the piece of glove on, then pulled it up a little bit so it would double up over my finger glands, right?
Yeah.
And then I just did this.
Goes right in, don't it?
Like I didn't even practice this before I did the video. I just
wow.
I just turned on the video. I'm gonna try this. I want everyone to watch me do this. And I was a little shocked.
You could have got a first-time reaction.
Oh my gosh, that was just too easy.
Yeah.
And all the times that I've, I get too excited, or my partner and I would get too excited, and we just kind of jump into it, and then I go at it, and I tear her.
Yes, exactly.
And I'm like, man, that's horrific. That shouldn't be happening.
And you feel like an asshole, and then it's going to be, well, now I got to heal, and it's
and then you don't get to have sex
sore
for a while.
down there.
Yeah, you don't get to have sex for a while.
It's nothing. It's really nothing. It's nothing to be proud of. It's like, you want to make a joke like, oh yeah, wore my woman out. It's like, no, dude, like that's not my goal, man.
Yeah, no,
like that's not. And especially when you describe it like you did, it's set up, man. Nature's working it just fine. It's done. You don't need to cut it off. There's like you said, there's so much friction. It's insane. And people want to argue like, oh, it's not necessary. I don't know what you're talking about, man. That's insane. I don't have anything intelligent to say other than it's just absolutely insane.
Yeah. But I didn't do this video until like a year ago, if that. So, here I am with a kid that's almost 16 years old. It took me that long to think to even try something like that. So it's a
great demonstration.
It doesn't just, all this stuff doesn't just automatically come to you unless someone's presented to you. And all these physical attributes of how I'm harmed was only presented piece by piece by piece to me. And I would like learn one piece and like get pissed off. It's like, well, one of the first things I remember learning was that it's lubricated in there. It's kind of like the inside of a vagina in there, you know.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
obviously not as much lubrication as what is in a vagina, but it's lubricated. It's
Yeah.
self. I was like, are you kidding me? I was so upset.
All those gallons of Vaseline down the tube.
Yeah, KY jelly or whatever
Right. Yeah.
you want to use.
Whatever.
Oh, I just so and I there's these stages of grief if you're into psychology but I went through these stages of grief over and over and over again because I would learn one thing and I'd go through the stages of grief. And I just like, I'm introverted, so I would retract and disappear and stop looking at this whole topic anymore for a while, and then come back and learn another thing. So yeah.
Yep. Well, and I'm thinking too, like, how old are you, John?
I'm 51.
But how old are you when you became a father?
35.
So you're 35. Okay, so you're in your mid 30s. Yeah. I feel like not every father. I mean, a lot of fathers, are they have their first kid when they're young, a lot of times.
Yeah.
And they're not usually thinking about, making those kind of big decisions. Yeah. They're just like, just kind of tell me what I need to do type thing, doc. I got to get to work. Got a job to do. Yeah. And then by then it's like, well, I've already did, the first child. You got to look like your brother, and then at that point you start making excuses for why you're not learning more about the decision that you made. You start making excuses for why you don't regret it, or even want to think about it. And then you see some guy talking on Twitter like, hey, I think you're a piece of shit if you're okay with circumcision. Well, fuck you, man. Yeah. It's like, oh, did I trigger something?
Yeah. Because I was this close to becoming a regret parent myself, I can see where they're at, right? And I try to meet them where they're at, and right. Because I often do this analogy. It's like, okay, well, try to jump 10 yards. Well, I mean, maybe you get a running start, you can, but most people are going to say, well, fuck you. I'm not going to do that. Yeah. Right? And to go from circumcision to genital mutilation, that's a huge leap for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right? They're not going to do that. So it's like you gotta have to give them stepping stones to get there and say, okay, well, here, make one step and consider it. Here's a fact for you. It's that part is called the prepuce. You can look it up. It's on medical anatomy books, and they remove the prepuce. So it's a preputial amputation, or you can call it preputioplasty, or posthectomy is another term I was saying. These are all the other terms. Why aren't they using that in medical textbooks? And just get them to, take that step, or even the step like I brought up earlier, circumcised. Where did that word come from? Why are they using that word in medical textbooks and stuff like that? Why aren't you? Again, that's a religious term, right? Or at the very least, a cultural term. But for the most part, when in fact, I did an interview this morning, early wee hours of the morning, with someone from South Africa, and they usually do it when the boys are 14, 15, 16. It's a rite of passage type of thing.
Right.
But the term circumcised, is somehow it started somewhere like in Africa and it spread, right? And it's just they use that term when they talk about female circumcision too. So even here in the United States, it used to be the regular term, and then someone suggested now it's FGM, and that kind of stuck.
Right. So. And like you're saying though, it's that education. It's the, hey, well, okay, yeah. You think you're for circumcision, but this is what this part is called.
Yeah.
This is what this part is called. This is what this does.
Yeah.
And this was its function.
Yeah.
And that is very useful. That is very useful. A good way to at least get someone thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. You gotta plant the seed.
Because they don't know anything. They don't know, like you said, they call it a foreskin. So, well, that's a pretty easy way to dismiss it. It's a pretty easy word to dismiss anyways. And so when you break it down like that, because I'm talking about these young fathers, and they're busy, and they're not learning all these things. And so, like you said before, is try to get them smart faster. Get them there beforehand.
Yeah, one antagonist I know has been actually going to high schools and protesting, kind of with the hope that teenage boys will start looking at this, and because they have a lot of power in this movement, because when they turn 18 they can try to sue, but they only have a couple years to get it done, right?
I see.
So you get to my age, it's like that's way too late. I tried though. I did. I took 3 steps. Oh, actually 4. I first filed a criminal complaint with the sheriff.
Nice.
Then and that went to, I was born on Navy base, so that went to the Navy. And then I filed a tort claim against the Navy. They were like, well, you're way past the 2-year mark. It's like, okay, well, first of all, you're assuming you're saying that it's a medical procedure. Where did that ever get defined in the first place?
Right, exactly.
So in order for that 2-year thing to fit, it has to be a medical procedure. Now, of course, you're probably familiar with the lawsuit that happened with the Boy Scouts of America and the Catholic Church, right? Where they molested boys.
Right. Yeah.
So, people have gotten money for those lawsuits. There was no statute of limitations there because it's not a medical procedure.
Indeed.
Ooh, but we can't sue the federal government or sue these doctors after they did it 2 years ago. Well, it's not a medical procedure. It's a ritual that they've medicalized, or they just decided to do it as surgeons inside of a cleaner, sterile environment. But it doesn't make it any less of a ritual. It's still a ritual.
Right, exactly right.
So
yeah, that seems pretty ridiculous. 2 years.
Yeah, that's statute of limitations. And then I took it to federal court, and I put them through the ringer. Definitely made the attorneys work on it, but it got let go. So,
well, that's cool. I mean,
hopefully I made an impression.
Yeah,
I like court, it. This guy complaining about his circumcision. So and in all those cases too, I'm sure that people got it and it's like, look at this guy, he's
sure.
like, let them laugh, but at least it's going to plant a seed and make them think about it. So I don't know how many dozens of people I've impacted by taking those steps. So, and then the very last thing is I reached out to the Inspector General's office and said, hey, the federal government is wasting money doing this. And that's what the Inspector General's office is all about, is to, keep the federal government from wasting money.
Right.
Of course, never got anything back, but anyways,
they
got my message. So anyways, the next part is the about the frenulum, or I call it the frenular area. You look at the Sorrells study, and it's it's the hot spot, right? It is the most sensitive to light touch, and I never really paid any attention to the hot spots on my penis until I started studying this topic.
Right.
You know what? Actually, that is.
Yeah, really there's a spot there.
Oh my gosh, man, that really does get interesting there. But depending on the cut, more or less of that is removed. That whole area, right? So if you figure this is like the bottom of the inner mucosa, and that frenulum kind of stretches out and it grabs that inner mucosa, the whole point of it is to kind of pull the skin back up over the glands when your penis relaxes, your erection goes away. But so I think I have at least a large amount of my frenulum area still. So I'm thankful for at least that much.
And you're I guess deducing that by you can feel it, and
so I can look at my penis, and I've looked at many others. You call me a perv or whatever you want to, but
oh my God, you think about penises all day long.
So you can look. There's 2 tones, right? 2 main tones, and there's a really there's where the scar line is too. But
Right.
like half of my shaft is the light color, and it's a thinner tissue. So I'm pretty sure that's the inner mucosa that was covering my glands when I was born. And then you have the shaft skin, and then you have then you get down to the scrotum. Right? That's for me. I'm a hairy guy, so that's hairy.
Gotcha.
Anyways, so it's depending on the cut. I worry so much about the younger generation on this one, because I'm pretty sure I was cut with a Mogen Clamp. Right?
Oh.
So they, it's like they pull it up a little bit and they slide the Mogen Clamp over and they clamp it and they slice. And you can look at the Jewish barzel; it's very similar. Or they slide it over. It's not a clamp; it's just a piece of metal with a with a thing inside, and it slips over, and then they slice.
That's brutal.
Yeah,
but that leaves some foreskin, doesn't it? Or am I wrong?
Well, yeah. It define foreskin. That where does the foreskin start and stop?
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So but the problem is that when they pull it up like that, more of your shaft skin ends up getting removed and less of your inner mucosa. Oh. Now, the other methods are the Bell methods. You got the Plastibell and the Gomco Clamp, and both of those involve sticking something down and over the glands. Right. Now, the thinking here was kind of good, because what happened, the Mogen Clamp got sued out of business because there were way too many botches. Oof. And the botches happened because they would put it on too low and they ended up pinching off the glands. And you can go out to circumcision.org and you can see some pictures of some of the damage that's been done. But but surprisingly, this Mogen Clamp is still getting used a lot today, from what I've seen. Even in like Africa with that PEPFAR program, the VMMC, voluntary male circumcision thing that's going on there in order to try to reduce HIV. Right. Anyways, but when you stick a clamp, you stick it down there, and the aim is to cut down, down here, you end up having a lot less of the inner mucosal area. So the cut is up here instead of down here. So that means that more of your frenulum area is gone. Now, I've come across guys that said, well, they freehanded it. They actually carved up underneath that part of, where it kind of goes up and back down. They carved out all of the frenulum. Wow. And according to John Geischer, he says that they end up, basically impotent when that happens. And wow. Some of the guys that have told me about, the fact that they're missing that is like, I don't have sex much. So whatever. So so that's absolutely
that's
horrific.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But again, Sorrells study has only been out for a little while. That wasn't out, 40, 50 back when I was cut years ago. So these, professionals had no idea what they were moving. I'm going to share an interesting story too. So again, medical textbooks, right?
Right. Yeah.
The male anatomy isn't the only thing that's lacking. In fact, female anatomy in medical textbooks is lacking even more. It's worse because at least in a lot of medical textbooks, you find the innervation. You at least see nerves there a little bit. When it comes to the nerves of the clitoral area, the reason why I know this is there's a gal by the name of Jessica Pinn. She doesn't love me. She blocks me on Twitter and all that, but because she thinks that circumcision is fine for males.
Sure. Good for her.
Yeah. So and there's a lot of intentiveness that have gotten into it with her, but I applaud her on her work because she did some actual work where she would take dead people and cut things apart and find out and take pictures and all that stuff and put together some literature to try to get these medical textbooks that actually have good information, and she's had some progress with that. So
wow. Well, that's cool.
Good job for her. But she has a reason why she's so passionate about this, because she chose to get cut at 18 and it ended up being botched, and she's obviously very mad because the person that did it didn't know their shit. So, wow. Yeah. And well, it's like, well, no wonder they didn't know their shit because it's not covered in medical textbooks. How about that?
It's not a medical procedure, arguably.
Yeah.
Maybe. Jesus.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, um, so yeah, I've seen some images where that inner mucosa is really, it's just like, not even a quarter inch down underneath the glands. So they're missing a lot more than I am.
Wow.
And then there's the ridged band, which I explained earlier, but I've heard that many intact men is like when they're getting an erection, and that's
Mhm.
and then when that's coming down and that it's spreading out because of the shape of the glands, it's spreading out that ridged band. So it's kind of doing a little stretchy thing.
Right.
That is its own sensation by itself.
Is that right?
Yeah. So of course you and I will never know what that feels like.
I'm getting madder.
I hear you.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be surprised. I'm going to get.
Yeah.
learn more.
One of the male intactivists I know of that I'm pretty sure if I remember right, he discussed it and it's in a video on YouTube. Michael, Foreskin Revolution. He's down in Australia. He actually moved from the US down to Australia. He did a video where he talks about all the parts of the foreskin and how things feel and all that. So Michael Winnell.
Right.
That's right. That's his last name.
Okay.
So those are all the parts, right, that are removed. Now here's some of the effects. So for me, like I was explaining earlier, they pulled it up and they did the snippy snip. So I end up only having a small amount of shaft skin, and then there's the scrotum. So when I get an erection, my scrotum is drawn up onto the penis because obviously I don't have the prepuce to unroll down onto my penis. So the skin has to come somewhere when things are, people use the term turtleneck a lot. It's like,
right.
Yeah. Can you imagine cutting off the skin off of a freaking turtle's head, turtle's neck?
Right.
It'd be absolutely horrible. So, the penis is very much the same way. It shrinks and it grows, by a radical amount. And you need that skin to accommodate it properly. So the scrotum, growing up or sliding up, is often referred to as scrotal webbing in medical lingo. But scrotum up on your shaft, that's hairy. No one wants that. No one wants that.
Well, no one wants that, and that can't be comfortable for an erection because you're pulling skin up.
That gets to the next thing, the testes, right? So the testes is inside your scrotum, right? Now I'm 51 now, so things are stretched out.
Sure.
Right. But when I was younger, it would pull up on my testes so much that it would like suck in my testes up. I even seen this on some porn. It's like you see the testes on both sides of the penis shaft.
Oh wow!
Hanging down, right? But so mine would get so tight. At least one of my testes would pop inside my body, and it's like I had to stop, masturbating.
Gotcha. Right. Now that you say that, I'm familiar with that as well. I didn't know what was going on.
I haven't run into many guys that have had the same issue.
Yeah. So when a testicle slips, it feels like it slips from the scrotum into
the body. Yeah.
And that's not normal.
No. That's actually what happens. That's the canal. If you look at the development of genitalia, all the genitalia is actually inside in utero, the early part, and then it slowly develops, right? And even with boys, sometimes the testes don't actually completely drop, but it goes from ovaries. They're gonads originally, and they either develop into ovaries or they develop into testes, and they drop down and out of the body,
right?
Because the testes have to be cool for the sperm. Right.
Wow. And that's caused by scrotal webbing. Am I correct on that?
Yeah. Now maybe there's scrotal webbing that happens just as kind of like a birth defect, maybe. I don't know, but from what I've seen pictures of this dang freaking scrotum is like right up here.
Wow.
Because they like totally degloved the whole penis.
That's got to be impossible. You're not. I mean,
I don't know how. I mean, I guess you can have sex just doing this.
I suppose. I mean, I don't want to take the. I don't want the guy to take a chance. You know, take a chance, dude. You know, do
Yeah.
what you got to do. But man, that's got to be. That's so frustrating because, well, I'll leave it at that.
And you know, you can like trim your hair, but then you end up with short, stubby hair.
And that's no good. That's like sandpaper.
Yeah, I can't imagine that inside of a vagina. And
No.
Or
no
asshole or
right.
Yes, whatever.
No one's gonna like it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, should not be happening to us.
Mm.
Okay, and then there's the other side of the penis. So I was talking about the bottom down here, where the scrotum is hanging down here, right? So, but there's also the pelvic floor. So you got the skin going to your pelvis, the bottom of your stomach, the upper side, and it says that's too tight for me, and this still happens because everybody just maybe if I did try to do more stretching and everything like that, maybe it would eventually stretch out. But because when it gets tight, it kind of cranes because you look at a tow truck and you see the cable right at the top of the bar that goes up, right? It's just like that. It's so as the penis goes out, the skin is getting tighter and tighter here, and it's making the penis curve upwards to your stomach. I mean, it's kind of funny, jokey, ha ha. It's like I could like control my penis kind of like a muscle, and I can make it wait.
Right. Yes.
Stop my stomach.
That's the same. Yeah, exactly. But I have the same what curvature.
Do you?
I guess you can.
Yeah.
And that's again to the super tight skin on the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of my partners was used to being with an intact guy before she met me, and and the problem is when you got that erection, and they expect the penis to be able to be out here, not up here, right? Yeah. So they start doing certain positions that pulls it down. Well, so have you ever heard of penis breaking a penis?
I've heard of it.
Okay.
It scares the shit out of me.
Yeah. So what happens is the part that's holding the blood inside the corpus cavernosum, it breaks, and then you have internal bleeding. Yeah. Because it's not designed. Once it's hard and full of blood and everything, it's not supposed to be twisted and turned and stuff like that.
Wow.
So you break the inside and you end up with internal bleeding, and you have to go to the ER for something like that. So guys, if that happens to you, go to the ER right away.
That's terrible.
And you'd have to have super blood clotting capabilities to stop that bleeding. So, but wow. I don't know if you ever this is actually a good comparison. I dropped a jack one time on my toe, my big toe, and it started internal bleeding. And 4 or 5 hours later, I was like in excruciating pain, and my dad took a needle and kind of basically popped the blood blister, and and it relieved it and all. But so same sort of thing. I mean, you imagine blood filling up your wrong. So anyways, I compare this too also with those balloons that you use to make animals and flowers and stuff like that. They twist them.
Yeah, animal balloons.
Yeah.
Balloon
so
animals,
but instead of filling it up with air, you're filling it up with blood, and it's clearly harder. But you bend one of those balloons, and you can see right away they kink. You bend your penis this way, okay, well, you're kind of creating a little bit of a kink there, and it's getting stretched out here. And I've had cases where it's like, okay, when I really get a hard erection, it's like it's actually kind of pushing out here too. So it's like it's making that, it's like making this weird S curve thing. Well, what makes it worse is when you have a partner that wants to do this.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, like stop! I can't.
Stop!
Can't do that.
Yeah.
Position.
Yeah. It doesn't go that way.
Yeah. So.
Yes, indeed. And that's a problem that is seems to follow the circumcised group more than the intact group. Indeed, right?
Yeah.
So
absolutely. I've interviewed some intact guys, and they're like, oh man, I feel so sorry for you, man.
I guess it means it's normal, but I'm sitting here figuring out that it's all that stuff isn't normal. It really isn't. Like
you and I don't know any difference because it happened to us well before we were having sex.
Exactly. Yeah. Man.
And because of course it also depends on how tight cut you are. I mean,
Right.
some guys get cut and they still have coverage on their glands. So
Uh-huh.
it depends on the. I used to use the term butcher, saying it kind of depends on the butcher, the cutting,
Right.
because I would use that term laughingly because it's like you can teach a butcher how to do this job. It's really
Sure.
you look at the tools and everything. Like, they make it so freaking easy.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
butcher could do this really easy.
Yeah.
But
Right.
so now I'm just calling them penis mutilators or genital
Sure.
mutilators.
Yeah, I call them mutilators.
Because
Sure.
I feel like I'm shaming butchers. It's like,
Yeah, it's an insult to butchers.
Yeah,
Right.
at least butchers are no, they know what they're doing. They're not lying about it.
Right, exactly.
Or staying in
Yeah,
kind of distance.
they come by their work honestly.
Yeah.
Whereas, there's no they're not lying to anybody about what they do.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Or violating their oath. First do no
Right.
harm.
Yeah. And then they gotta
they never made an oath.
They gotta double talk about how they're not. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, you're breaking your oath.
Yeah. So another thing, this happened to me, myelostenosis. You familiar with that term?
I've heard the term. I'm not familiar exactly what it is.
So your meatus is the part right at the end of the penis where your urine comes out.
Yeah.
Right. Unless you have that condition, that like an intersex condition where your urine is coming out down here somewhere.
Right.
So what? And this is pretty much exclusive to cut males, or males that were cut as babies. I don't even think it really happens much to, from what I've gathered so far, males that were cut as adults. I don't think it happens to them because they've already fully developed, right?
Wow.
The penis is already grown. So when we're cut as babies, our penis is still developing. So so the penis might be growing extra tissue here or whatever, and stenosis meaning closing up, right? So it closes up a little bit, and there's men that have to have things re-drilled out, whatever, there to fix that.
Right.
For me, I actually had a little bit of a skin bridge across my meatus, and what I would do is when I would urinate, I would it would go multiple directions. It wouldn't just go single stream. And I was visiting my grandmother for the summer or whatever, and she's like, "I'm not having any of this. You're making a mess of the restroom. Let's try it." And she was concerned about it. So, love my grandma. She took me to the doctor, and the doctor was like, "Oh yeah, honey, you have a little skin thing here. Here, stick it all, snip, snip."
No.
Yeah, I didn't feel anything. I don't remember feeling anything from it. But anyway, it was definitely. I was at least 7, 8 years old, so I remember it very clearly. And I'm taking my pants down in front of someone.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so it's definitely going to stick to my mind. But he took the knife and just snipped it real quick, and I was off and never.
Thank God.
I think I still have a level of myelostenosis because I think the ureter is a little closed off a little bit there, because I can feel a little bit of a sharp feeling when I'm urinating right there.
And that was from the cut.
Yeah, it's from having your glands exposed as you're growing up, when the glands is supposed to be all covered up with your prepuce.
Right.
And all moist and lubricated and all that stuff, and so it ends up developing very differently.
Wow.
Yeah. And for those that want to look, you can go look at real pictures on circumcisionharm.org, and you can see pictures where they show side by side stuff like that. There's one picture where they take they took two penises, one that was intact and one that was cut as a baby, and they push down on the penis at the end, and they show the size of the meatus, and it's like double the size for the intact guy.
Wow.
So yeah.
Good grief.
And so I talk about having a little back pressure.
Yeah. No joke.
Some people they do the circumcision because there is back pressure, then it causes, it can harm the kidneys and all that, right?
Is that right?
Because something grows across or whatever, and I'm always like, okay, well, was he forcefully retracted? Because if he was forcefully retracted, then the body would go into overdrive and create scar tissue there and everything like that, which might end up covering
Right.
the ureter, and then that would cause, he wouldn't be able to pee, or he would balloon and stuff like that. So
That makes sense.
ballooning is okay as long as the urine is leaving, but if it's ballooning and not leaving, run to the ER right away.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
really, they don't need to be fully preputially amputated to deal with that. I mean, if they stretch it out or do a little bit of a cut or something like that at the end to open up the opening, that should be all that's really needed. You should, but of course,
Right. Exactly.
that's something that doctors should probably have a discussion about.
Educate themselves on. Yeah.
Okay. And this kind of relates to the next thing, which is skin bridges. So again, the prepuce is supposed to be attached to the glands during early childhood until things develop. Another comparison. The doctor that I interviewed actually does this comparison too. It's like you look at kittens and their eyelids are closed when they're first born, right? You don't go in there and tear that apart. Just open up their eyeballs. You let it finish developing, and then it'll separate on its own. Same thing with the penis. It develops on its own, and then it separates inside there, and then it starts allowing for retraction as you're like reaching. There's a whole range of ages that it should be separating. I don't think really there's any should. It's like I talked to one guy who was in his early 20s and said, yeah, it's just now actually separating for me, and it's fine.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
Yeah, but so the problem is if they cut and there's still intermucosa there, and the penis gets relaxed, extensively at night or whatever, and then they ends up with a little bit of coverage, and that intermucosa is touching the glands. The body says, "Hey, here's an opportunity to create scar tissue. Let's try to reattach because I'm supposed to be attached." And then he grows up, and no one notices or whatever. No one takes a close look, PP or whatever. And there's a skin jumping from the glands down to the intermucosa.
Man.
You can find pictures of this too. You have to like stick a Q-tip in there and clean it out every once in a while. Like that's totally the opposite of what everyone uses this hygiene excuse. Like that's not hygienic. Thank you very much.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Man.
So some will get revisions later on in life or whatever to fix those kind of things. So.
Oh my God. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's have been studies that show that erectile dysfunction happens early on in age for men that were cut. But erectile dysfunction is there's two factors that affect it, right? There's obviously whatever's missing from the penis or whatever's physically going on with the penis that's likely to affect erectile dysfunction. But then also you got the brain, right, which is your biggest sexual organ.
Very good point.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Marty Klein, he talks about that. He actually said that. Yeah, he's a sexologist. There's like 3 sexologists I follow. Marty Klein, which I can't get him to talk about this topic yet. He's dismissive about it. Then there's Dr. Doe of Sexplanations on YouTube, something to subscribe to. She's great. And then there's Caitlin V, Caitlin, and then the letter V. She's also a good sexologist. All on YouTube. So
cool.
And Dr. Doe is very pro intact.
Is that right? Good.
Yeah. Yep. Nice. And then you have premature ejaculation. This is something I added to my list later on because I kind of came to another discovery. It's like, think about this. So, we talked about the frenulum, right, being there right at the base of the glands and going down onto the intermucosa. Well, so it's in there and it's kind of protected by the prepuce, right?
Right.
It doesn't really get engaged, exposed,
no, it don't
until it goes
it's
inside.
In there, but...
It's like way in there, right? And Mother Nature is thinking, it's like you don't want to ejaculate until you're close to where you're trying to get
save the good part for last, buddy.
Exactly. You want
Get
to
in there
impregnate the
ways.
woman, so you want it all the way in there
Yeah.
before that is being
Wow.
touched. Whereas, you know, guys that are preputially amputated, it's getting touched right away. So it's like, "Ooh, okay, I lost it. Too late. Sorry."
Damn it. That's what happened. Now I know what happened. I got to go back and explain myself.
Yeah.
Listen.
Yeah, but my parents were, you know, and the you know, the genital mutilator, you know, from my PE. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they it's not my fault.
Yeah, so, you know, make our sexual partners more angry about this too, so they speak out.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of people say, you know, I only see women complaining about this. Like, well, there's good reasons for that. You know, one is there's a whole bunch of reasons why us victims don't want to speak out, because you know, it's kind of traumatic every time we have to talk about it, you know.
Yeah.
Because we're reliving the fact that we're victims.
Yeah.
Whereas the women, they're kind of victims, but they're indirect, unless they're, you know, victims of, you know, female genital cutting.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So thank you, women, for speaking out for us.
Yeah. It's seriously
guys.
like any women that are like that are brave enough to be like, yeah, no, we need to speak for them. Yes, it's not an issue for women.
Yeah,
it's an issue for boys, and it is affecting our men that are, you know, that we rely on. You know what I mean?
And this dynamic is also true for the victims of female circumcision that do speak out. They like one, going blank on her name right now. She lives in the UK now, and she's very active on Twitter. And you can look for the hashtag #NDFGM, and I'm pretty sure you'll see her pretty quick. But there's a video of her talking about her remembering getting cut and everything like that, and you see a tear go down her face and everything like that. And I can't remember whether it's that video or another video of her, but she says, you know, I don't like talking about this. It triggers me. So, but I feel like I have to.
Terrible.
So, yeah. So a lot of men just don't, because they don't want to. And it's even worse if you're doing it within the culture, where you get a lot of cognitive dissonance, a lot of pushback, a lot of willful ignorance, right? So most, except for one, and I put up a video of her on my YouTube channel because she didn't have a YouTube channel. She's wearing all the beads and everything, so it looks like she's still living in the culture, but she's speaking out against female circumcision. But these others that speak out are mostly in like the UK or whatever.
Right.
They've moved to cultures where freedom of speech and all that is encouraged. So here in the US, you know, you guys like you and I, we run into a lot, especially like on Twitter, or, you know, like people like, but it's cleaner, or reduce the chances of, you know, STDs, whatever.
Yep.
And yeah, so it's kind of painful to run into that kind of thing all the time.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
And even more so trying to do it in person, you know, going out in those bloodstained pants or wearing shirts like I wear and running into people, you know, saying, you're a dummy, you know, you got cut or whatever.
Yeah, they try to attack your intelligence.
Yeah. Like, bring it, come on, bring it. I'll have a debate with you.
Yeah.
I just love it anymore. It's like, I'm ready for the fight. Bring it on.
Yeah, no joke.
So, and then the last thing about the physical attributes or the physical effects is genital botches. There's things like curved penises that happen during erections because, you know, one side is cut shorter than the other. Hey, you're mechanical, right? Anyone that's like cuts wood or metal or whatever, it's like, you got to make sure you got a perfect 90 degree, right? Or 45 degree, whatever. It's like, you know, for doing this, you need to make sure you have a perfect 90 degree. Well, you're dealing with a tiny little thing that's small, and trying to put a clamp on it and all that. It's like, if you don't put it on perfectly straight, you're gonna end up cutting too much off on one side and not enough on the other. So another reason.
That's exactly what. Every time we talk about the tools, I'm sitting here thinking, like, not every infant's organ is going to be exactly the same, and how is it that they're always going to get? It's not a cookie cutter. They're not going to get it perfect every time. There's going to be a misalignment.
Yep.
And then it goes into, well, yeah, many times from what I understand, it's better to perform circum or mutilation on an erect penis. And then that really upsets me
Yeah,
because
they
it's like,
flex
well,
the
that's a
penis,
whole that's a whole other realm
Pal-
of
palpate
yeah, man.
the penis in order to make it erect. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's because they kind of they need that rigidity to get that tool to fit properly and get a good cut. Well,
Yeah, and
that screams
they want to
problems.
mark where the glands stop, so they know not to cut too much. They don't want to cut past down lower
Mhm.
than the coronal ridge of the
Mhm.
glands. So when they palpate it and it becomes erect, then the skin gets tightened and you can see the edge of that. So
Right.
that's why they do it.
Wow.
Yeah, and so yeah, and there's multiple guides or whatever you can find out there. The WHO has one, and that's the one that I came across where they say, palpate the penis. And, yeah. Anyways, so there's no standard, there's no regulation on this, practice or anything like that. So
Right.
anyone can do it. You don't even have to be a surgeon. Even though I guess one
Are you
guy got,
serious?
yeah, I guess one guy did get arrested for trying to do his own son's. Um,
You don't have to be a surgeon to be.
How do Moyles get along with doing it? They won't touch this because they're too afraid of upsetting the Jewish Moyles or the Jewish
Wow.
group.
Good grief, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why the herpes thing happens in New York. We see these stories pop up every once in a while about how another baby got infected by herpes because they use their mouth to deal with the blood. Yeah. I know it'll gross people out and all that, but I'm sorry.
Yeah,
This is real.
I'm aware of that practice, and I don't.
Matitza bepe. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So those are all the
Insane.
physical attributes. You got any other thoughts on those?
And well, I mean, I can only speculate what it does psychologically. I mean, I can't imagine.
So I covered physical. Then the next thing I go into is partners, and then after that I go into psychological, and then relationships.
Yeah, no, as far as physically, man, that's well, I mean, shoot, I learned a lot just in this discussion about it. And yeah, it's what else can you say about it other than it's tragic.
Yeah.
Like these botches. Micro penis, right? That's usually a result of a botched
no,
or am I wrong?
That's a form of intersex.
Okay.
So a lot of people think, well, there's just XX and XY, but there's actually 25 different combinations of X and Ys. Okay. And that's often referred to as DSDs or intersex. So DSD stands for disordered sexual development.
Gotcha.
Right. And a lot of intersex people really don't like that term, and they prefer to use the term intersex.
Right. So, and I was speaking out of ignorance because I had it explained to me. A guy had his, or I guess it was his adopted son was circumcised at some point, and it ended up being an amputation. And he flipped. I think he just flippantly said like, well, it's essentially micro penis, and that's how he explained it to me. But that's not what it was. But so that's quite the botch, right? When the whole thing is
that sounds a lot like the David Reimer case, Reimer, for anyone that wants to look it up.
Reimer, is that the John Money?
Yep, Dr. John Money. Mm-hmm. Dr. John Money thought that you could socialize children into being male or female, and that obviously didn't work with David Reimer.
It's a big old construct, right?
Because you can't just change the physical attributes and think that the XX and XY is going to change with it. It doesn't work that way.
Well, I don't know. I had this Ford once, and I put a Chevy paint job on it. I swear, man. I swear. I had everyone fooled. It's like, good God, man.
Yeah. Okay. All four parts with the Chevy paint job.
Yeah. Emblems and everything.
Yeah.
It's a Chevy, I swear to God.
You have a 4x4 then.
Yeah, man.
Oh gosh.
Jesus.
That's funny. That's a good one. So yeah, there's you can look up intersex on YouTube. Over the past four to 5 years, there's been a huge amount of openness suddenly on that topic. There's actually multiple TEDx talks about the topic, and I don't think I have her book up here, but well, I shouldn't even say her because she doesn't go by, or they don't go by her or he. I'm going blank on it, but anyways, I can probably share it later on or something. But this person actually, also actually in the LA area, wrote a book about middle sex, I think they called it, and there's also an activist that would regularly join the Blessing Men that is also intersex. So yeah, so there's I'm connected with lots of intersex people now. There's Seven Cram in LA, and there's Joseph Benedict over in Las Vegas, and all these people. I try to educate people about the intersex thing, and even Your Whole Baby has accepted having an informational pamphlet at the Your Whole Baby tables, informational tables, so to help educate people about that, because your baby might be born with an intersex trait, and they don't necessarily need to be cut. They could be left alone until they get older, and just if they want to decide to have surgery, then they can do it as adults. And in a lot of ways, it's better to wait.
Yes.
Until an adult. And in fact, Lurie's Children's Hospital and then one other following them apologized to the intersex community and said, yeah, these surgeries should probably wait until the individual can weigh in on whether to have them. So.
You mean give informed consent?
Yeah,
with a mature, fully developed brain? That's insane. Why would you consider such a crazy thing?
Yeah, so it's like, well, okay, what about male circumcision, guys? You know, it's like what you're saying. You can take out the word intersex and just say all children.
You gotta wait.
Yeah.
Yep. Jeez. Yeah, man, it's insane.
Yeah. This stuff keeps coming up more and more and more. It's like, guys, it's like Alabama, I think, has this bill where they were going to outlaw gender surgeries on children.
Right.
And the way it's worded is like, that outlaws male circumcision on babies. Hello.
Very good. Very good.
They finally figured it out. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Whoever wrote that just wasn't thinking. I don't know. Or maybe they were trying to put it into male circumcision and stuff.
Yeah, man, I'm good with that.
Yeah. So, anyways, it's all coming together, and eventually they're going to just cut out the whole, sexism of these surgeries and just say, hey, no cutting of healthy tissue.
Yes, exactly right.
Healthy and normal tissue, at least. If you've got a sixth finger or something like that, okay, well, that's not normal. That's a birth defect. Foreskin is not a birth defect.
Exactly right.
So, anyways, we have already talked a little bit about this but there's effects on our partners, sexual relationships, and there's so I've got this broken up into heterosexual, anal, and homosexual, particularly docking. But for you and I, heterosexual, right? And we talked about how, because we don't have that rolling mechanism and we don't have that lubrication built in, we end up tearing our partners. Or first, once I figured that out, it's like, I can't let myself jump into it too soon. Yeah. So I had to do some preparation.
Exactly. You do some prep work.
Gotta warm her up a little bit.
Yep.
So, and things
exactly right.
Yep. So, so we don't really need to talk about the other ones unless you want to know about it.
No, I'm good with the heterosexual thing. Not to be, but that's what I'm into.
Yeah. For those that want to, learn about the other side, there's a guy by the name of Sam Carnes, or Sam C. You can look him up on YouTube, and he has tons of videos. He's actually he's been studying medical stuff too, and he and his partner are both intact, so they
Right
talked all
on.
about all that, very
Oh,
openly and
cool.
all that. So,
Yeah.
and he's also on Twitter.
Yeah. Right on. Check that out.
And then here we are, psychological impacts, right? So yeah, I showed you Ron Goldman's book, and
Right.
he primarily focuses on the trauma from the cut, right? And the book is U.S. based, so it's primarily focusing on what happens to babies, whereas
Gotcha.
in so many
That's
other parts of the
useful.
world, the age varies radically.
Yes.
Even in South Korea, where, as I understand it, South Korea, they got the whole idea from us during the Korean War. I guess North Korea does not, but South Korea does. But it seems like they don't like the idea of tearing the glands, separating the intermucosa from the glands. So they wait until the boy is older, 8, 9 years old or whatever, and then do it, because then they don't have to, reach in there and forcefully separate, right? So,
Right.
but
that separation doesn't always happen at 8 or 9,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I
So
don't know how, if they
do they get
if they
hasty?
check that out first or whatever. I
Yeah.
haven't actually talked to anyone from South Korea about it.
Right.
I did meet one guy. I gave him a ride one time in my vehicle, Uber, and he didn't seem all that interested in talking. No, I'm sorry, he was from the Philippines. Sorry, different one. So yeah, no, I haven't talked to anyone from South Korea about it. So hey, if
Right.
you're from South Korea and you know about this,
Yeah.
bring me up.
We'd
I'd
like to
love
know.
to hear. And I often dream sometimes too about just traveling across the world to all these different places and doing video interviews and getting all this recorded. There
Yeah.
is one person, but there's this
Oops.
person by Hanny Lightfoot Klein. She she traveled to Africa and she studied the whole genital cutting stuff that goes on there.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, it in South Korea and these other countries, they do it at older ages.
Yeah.
Like,
It's only
that just drives me nuts.
Yeah, it's only primarily Jewish and U.S. that really does it for the most part to babies.
During in
So
the infant
yeah,
years. Yeah. Well, I can't say which one I like better. I know I hate both of them.
yeah, no, I
It's
do
like,
too.
I can't imagine being 8 and
Yeah,
going through that.
yeah.
That's
And
just
maybe they might be also better at I mean, at older ages too. You could be anesthetized a lot better, right? It's more dangerous to
mm-hmm.
anesthetize a baby than it is to um,
Mm,
a grown boy. So they might be making it far more numb, and they might be able to give them
right.
stronger meds when they're recovering and all that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
Don't make it right though.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about dreams and stuff like that some people have, and I've even seen stories of a 5-year-old or whatever talking to his mom and saying, yeah, I remember, and already I don't think doctors should have scissors. Yeah, it was actual words. It was,
And who's this at 5 years old?
I don't know who the specific person. It was just a story that I came across.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. One of those stories.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So sometimes
And
memory is developed.
well, and Ron Coleman he talks a lot about that in his book about, from the cut
Yeah.
as as an infant,
Yeah.
and the lifelong psychological damage that can occur from that.
Yeah. Brother K even talked about his multiple times about how he didn't eat and wasn't like it was like asleep for 2 days straight, which is kind of dangerous for a baby to not eat. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's extremely dangerous.
yeah. So and I kind of get down into it in the relationships, but I'll go and bring it up here too. Is your child is supposed to be like skin to skin contact. You look at a lot of mammals too. It's like the same thing after the baby is born. Is like right there, skin to skin, with a parent right away. So, and it can be traumatizing to even be just taken away from the mom.
Indeed.
So yeah,
But we tend to dismiss that.
Yeah.
We tend to dismiss that need for,
Yeah.
baby and mama, skin to skin
Yeah, I don't know
type of thing.
whoever got the idea that it's a good idea to take the baby away right away and go stick it in a plastic box and turn on
Right.
lights and I what why I have no idea where those ideas came from. I You would think there'd be like some sort of studies or something, some sort of paper somewhere that explained that thinking that got
Yeah,
that started. The only thing that I can think of is they wanted to create hospitals a lot like they treated making Ford cars. You know,
sure.
assembly line it.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
make it efficient.
my mind tends to go more toward like some conspiracy, it's like they just kind of
What do
want
you
to
mean?
shape us that way. They want us to be separated from our parents and cause trauma to us and make
Yeah,
us, I don't know, more compliant. It's all
yeah,
speculation. I don't have any evidence on that. I'm just saying, like, what is it all for?
yeah.
What are they doing with all these
I think
these
there's actual science.
foreskins? What
Yeah,
are they doing with,
yeah,
why do they do it the way they do it?
yeah.
You
And I
know?
think those are questions we should be asking. Um, and some doctors get irritated at getting too many questions, and they think they're God or they're the authority or whatever. It's like you do what I tell you to do because I'm the doctor. You're not. It's like
Right.
uh-uh.
Yeah. Because like if you don't like being a doctor, if you don't like the questions, then you're in the wrong field.
Yeah,
If you don't like people wanting to know what you know about, or what's
yeah,
what, you can't handle it, then you're in the wrong field.
absolutely. I agree.
Go somewhere where no one talks to you.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know. I
yeah.
don't know, man. It's insane.
So, and then there's the trauma from the discoveries, right? So,
Right.
you'd probably say that you've been traumatized a little bit here just during this interview, right? Where you've learned a
Yeah, a
couple
little,
things,
quite a
right?
bit. Yeah. Sure. Definitely.
I, I'm laughing, but it's an uncomfortable laugh. I
Sure.
I hate I hate to see guys seeing this. I've seen so many guys like get so stressed and torn and struggling as they start realizing um, what's been done to them and what they're missing and all that. And um,
Yep.
yeah, it's traumatic to learn about
Yes, it
this.
is.
And like I think I was saying earlier, I was traumatized over and over and over again, and there's stages of grief that people go through, and the first stage is denial, and the last one is acceptance. So there's
Yep.
some bargaining in there and some other things, but um, and there's no time clock on trauma or on the grief process.
Hmm.
So you might be able to get through this quickly and then be able to act on it, act on your knowledge, or you can withdraw and avoid the topic, you know, for the rest of your life. So
Right.
even Jay, the guy that wrote the book, it was traumatizing for him to write the book. But after seeing the American Circumcision documentary, he felt the need to write his feelings and thoughts down, and he did it without a filter. Pretty much, he was like, you know, this
Right.
fucking pisses me off, basically.
Nice.
Um,
It's the way to do
so
it.
we need more of that. We need to not be so afraid to get mad and express our discontent about this. So
I agree.
because as long as we don't, I use the hashtag men do complain, and there's
Right.
also the hashtag I am not thankful, to kind of spread that word. There's
I like that one.
you can find stories on like Your Whole Baby and 15 Squared and several other genital autonomy websites that try to share stories of men complaining about the topic. So.
Yeah, I like that.
So yeah, it's like Jay, he wrote that book and then he did a little bit of marketing with it, and then he's it's like tune it out now and try to focus on something else because it's too traumatizing to keep
Is
thinking.
that right?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I even myself, I've had times it's like I just get too depressed, whatever, and I'll just go do something else to try to get my mind off of it and you know try to find another. I'm a problem solver, a puzzle solver. I always have been. I've
Right.
3 decades in IT. it's like I was drawn to that because it's like I knew this stuff and I could like solve these problems with the knowledge of this technology and all. And now I'm using that those technological skills to like improve some of the websites, the genital autonomy websites. Like I've been working on circumcision.org with Ron, for example, and just today I met with uh, Jillian Longley on Nurses for the Rights of the Child. It's childrightsnurses.org, trying to fix that website up a little bit, stuff like that. So so I had to have a problems to solve, I guess.
Right.
Unfortunately, the problems I keep finding to solve happen to be this whole topic.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I'm not I'm not needed the same way in corporations like I used to be to solve problems in those corporations. So.
Well, it's true though. It's you go through these iterations of, man, I need to step away. I can't flip through another page of, pictures of circumcisions and
Mutilated penises.
more details, more baby penises.
Yeah.
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 And it's just, it can affect your day.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's, it is hard. It's hard work, dude.
Yeah.
Like just, and I don't even do anything other than I get on Twitter and I talk to people,
Yeah.
but dude, it's serious stuff. And I know people want to kick it aside and ignore it and like want you to not talk about it because it makes them think about it. But it's worth it to me if I can stop somebody from cutting their kid.
Yeah.
Like, you can call me all the names you want for eternity.
Yep.
Go for it, please.
Yeah.
If that's what it takes, it's fine with me.
Yeah. I'm there with you, man. And there are men that have committed suicide about it, like Alex Hardy and Jonathan. Why am I going blank on his name now? Anyway, Jonathan he's in the American Circumcision documentary.
Oh wow.
Jonathan Conte committed suicide. There's also, if you looked at some of my interviews, there's a couple of cases where I talked to a woman whose partner committed suicide and or died by suicide. My wife picked something about the terminology I use about this. And then another where a guy's best friend did, and the timing was around the same time that his best friend was talking a lot about the harms and about how he was upset about it and all that. So he's like, yeah, he's 99% sure that he died by suicide because of this, what happened
Right.
to him. So it happened, and it's not something that hits the news very often. For some reason, Alex Hardy did, and Jonathan Conte. I don't think I ever saw a news article in the mainstream media about it, but it's at the end of the American Circumcision documentary. It notes that he's passed. So it doesn't even point out that he died by suicide.
That's terrible.
So, but it doesn't take much looking up to find out.
Right.
So then there's a psychological impact on children. Right. I have my own children that they see me wearing these shirts all the time, and they know that their mom and dad speak out about this a lot. And I compare this to Greta Thunberg. You know who that is?
Yeah.
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 So I read her dad's story about her. Greta started learning about certain things that are going on in the world, and she got into a depressive state for a while, and then she eventually starts standing on the side of the road or on a sidewalk with a sign, protesting to try to change things with the world and got her voice.
Right.
So I worry that my own sons might get, or even maybe are to a certain extent, depressed about what's going on in the world and knowing that this is going on in the world.
Right.
So, so yeah, this is a psychological effect on them whether they're cut or not.
Indeed. To know that's going on.
Yeah.
They pick it up.
Yeah.
And then they have to comprehend how these adults are taking these babies and cutting them. They have to figure that out in their little mind and figure out like why people are doing that and how they think it's okay. People all around them think it's okay. It's just that's some serious damage.
Yeah, and you can find videos on YouTube, particularly on the Bonobo 3D channel, and there's cases where there's people are protesting out on the streets and all that, and they've got their kids with them, also holding signs and all that. So
for sure. Yeah. Yep.
And then we have medical professionals. Some of those are on I just mentioned the childrightsnurses.org website. There's medical professionals. Jillian Longing herself, she's retired now, turning 70 tomorrow. Happy birthday, Jillian. Working in these hospitals and these clinics and all that, where they do it and they're totally against it. And they might be able to like say, "Well, I'm not participating," but there's only so far that they can go with saying that, because if there's no other person in the place to like do that part, like they kind of feel like they have to. So but it tears them apart to be in any way close to it. So I personally myself, before I realized I actually interviewed for a job at Children's Hospital in Seattle one time for an IT job.
Okay.
And this was before my first son was, I think it was before my first son was along. But now that I know what I know, and after I processed all this, I'm like, I wouldn't work there. There's no way.
Right.
And there's one guy there that I know I couldn't be around. I actually protested, and he at one of his things in Seattle where he did a lot of talking about bioethics. There's a bioethics conference, and here he is being one of the main speakers. Like, you consider yourself ethical? I'm sorry.
Yeah, dude. That's way too often that crap happens.
Yeah, Dr.
Good
Deacon,
grief.
Yeah, Deacon is actually at Seattle Children's Hospital, so I wouldn't be able to be around him anymore. So yeah, I couldn't imagine working at a hospital where I know this was going on.
No way.
So I'd probably go steal all the Gomco clamps, Mogen clamps, go melt them down or something.
Yeah, that'd be a problem.
Yeah,
I would be a problem.
Yeah. I could see myself kidnapping a kid just to protect them.
Yeah.
I get myself in so much trouble so fast.
It'd be an issue.
Yeah. Yep. And then there's the parents like you and I. It burns me that I was so close.
That
it just so burns me. The thought of the fact that I was going to let it happen to my kid.
I was all for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All through the pregnancy and everything.
You were like on the edge of
I mean, technically I was. Not that I was thinking about it like, yeah, I can't wait. I wasn't like that. I was just kind of like, well, it's one of those things you do it. And I was like, yeah, I was going to do it.
Okay. Kind of like vaccines, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Just like that.
Cut the cord and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Just
same way.
Procedure. But yeah, no, it's not. It's not normal. US is weird.
So, right.
Yeah, so I've interviewed some regret parents, and I really feel sorry for them. I'm really appreciative of those regret parents that are wanting to speak out now.
Me too.
About it, so, and that they've seen the problem with this.
They're important because it's the parents that don't regret. They're holding on to their reasons to keep going on the way they go. It's the people that are like, no, I did this thing and I own it. I shouldn't have done it. I won't let it happen again. And that owning up to your mistake right there is, well, your kid is going to benefit from that greatly.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how these parents hold themselves back from going in and kicking some butt in the hospital or something.
Yeah. I know, man.
Okay, and then there's intact individuals, and it's been interesting talking to intact individuals, and they often talk about their story about like growing up and like being around boys that are cut or whatever, and they would like feel bad that they weren't cut too or whatever.
Is that right?
Until they grew out old enough to learn about how they're better off and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
yeah. So yeah, this psychologically impacts them as well. And I've seen plenty of intact individuals. Some I think you've probably seen on Twitter speak out saying, "Hey, it's not hard to clean. I'm intact. I'm happy. I'm happy I don't have that part missing from me." And all
Still
those,
alive.
all those reasons, for removing it. That's not good enough. I
Yeah.
wouldn't do that for those reasons.
No joke.
Yep. So I even have a group on. Did I mention that before? I have a group on Facebook called Intact Male Intactivists. Actually, I always talk about the Cut Dads group, but I also have an Intact Male Intactivist group where there's intact guys that will respond to questions or even just make posts about how, hey, it's great to be intact. So
yeah,
great to have my prepuce or my foreskin or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty. I love it when they speak up.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's helpful.
Absolutely. It's for some people that's not enough though. It's pretty weird. It's like you gotta bombard them with multiple perspectives. Like, okay, you gotta get it from the guy that's cut, that's not happy. You gotta get it from the intact guy that is happy. You gotta get it from the females that are unhappy that their partner is cut or happy that their partner is intact. You gotta get it from all sorts of sides. So
right, you gotta try to bring in the full spectrum of everyone's input on it.
Yeah, so it's a team effort.
Yeah, it really is.
Unfortunately.
It really is.
And then the last, but definitely not the least, is the psychological impacts to the advocates for genital autonomy or the intactivists. This is traumatizing work, like just like you were saying, it's hard work trying to convince people. So it was 2005 when my first son was born. It wasn't until about 2012 that I started speaking out. And before I started speaking out, I was like hemming and hawing. It's like, I don't want to piss anyone off or anything like that. Like I'm afraid of losing friends and family and even my job. And there are people that I know that have lost their job over this because they decided to publicly speak out about it.
Right.
But I was like, I'm more worried about meeting the guy 15, 16, 17, 18 years from now that's pissed off that he was cut and not being able to tell him I tried.
Right.
I can't. I just can't let that happen. That would just break my heart. So it's more important that I speak out.
Right.
But yeah, I've lost multiple relationships over it, and I'm pretty darn sure that this has affected my career. Because I've had people ghost me completely when it comes to doing work or whatever, getting jobs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah. It's like I don't have any other. I can't imagine any other reason why they would ghost me.
Right.
Responding to me or whatever. So they never have a conversation with me or talk about it or anything.
So strange how it can scare people off.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a taboo topic, right?
Right.
You have any other ideas on the psychological effects on people? I mean, the whole part of the aim of this is to show that this isn't just affecting the guys that got cut. This is affecting everyone.
Yeah.
One way or another.
Yeah. Well, and I never really thought about other than my own. It affects me.
Yeah.
And as my wife learns more about it through her getting into it and me talking about it, it really affects her too. And she's starting to realize like, oh, I shouldn't have to be so sore after intercourse and things like that. It just, people people underestimate how much it can, how much it affects you and how many different facets.
Yeah.
That's all I can say, other than, you know, that I can't really say anything else other than that. It's like,
You know, I listed off those 4 different types of people that, you know, we got to give 4 different perspectives. There's actually a 5th, you and I, because we're cut dads of intact sons. And I think
yes. Very good.
I think that is very powerful.
Yes,
You know,
indeed.
I often say, hey, intact dad of 2 teenage boys here.
Right.
I change their diapers and they're still okay and happy to this day, you know.
Right.
And I'm not. And so I, you know, and the fact that I have teen sons, well, I'm hoping that people interpret by that is like, dude, this guy has had some time to think about this topic, right?
He's not a father with a
boys.
toddler.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Or you know, a guy that, you know, had his son cut without thinking about it. You know, this is a guy that kept his son intact, and he's obviously he's had that, you know, had some thoughts about it over that much time. So
no, that's a very good point. That is a whole other mix of we have a challenging dynamic between our relationship between our, you know, with our sons now. It's a challenging dynamic.
Yeah.
You know, and there's no instruction manual for it. No one's telling you how to do it, right?
No, it's kind of unique situation, unfortunately.
Yep.
I'm really, really proud of my sons. They've gone out and protested with me. They've even participated a little bit on social media.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's way cool.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
So, all right. So the next section is about relationships. First is the child-parent trust, and that trust is impacted at multiple times through the childhood as a child becomes an adult and maybe even later. But the trust is really important, you know, as child.
Right.
But even as an infant, that trust is broken down, because you take a baby, take it away, it starts crying because it's not with its mom, and you put it on a cold board. Be nice if they at least warm those things, but you know, then they cry more and they get trapped down. They're not comfortable, you know, and they're crying some more, and no one's doing anything about the crying.
Yep.
So what is this teaching the kid? It's like, you're teaching the kid, don't cry, right? Because you're not going to get any attention.
It's useless.
Yeah. So then later on, they might be hungry or whatever, but what am I going to do about it? Crying doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
So their trust is already broken down right away.
I just felt the worst pain I'll ever feel in my entire life, and nobody did shit for it. Yeah. I'm going to tell you I'm hungry.
What's the point?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you stick a ball in my mouth, I'll eat, but
yeah, now you care.
Jesus. Yeah. And then, you know, I've seen videos of a guy, you know, a young, you know, teenage boy confronting his mom about it. I've also seen stories about guys confronting their parents about it, and their parents being all defensive and all that. So,
of course. Yep.
Yeah.
Which is like the worst reaction they can have.
Yeah. But that's definitely a way to break down the trust now. If your parent isn't going to at least, you know, try to be empathetic and listen and understand and all that. So I've seen some videos of Brendan. If you look at Brendan Marota's YouTube channel, he actually did an interview with Carter Steinoff and Carter's mom. And Carter's mom is very supportive and all that. So, and then I've seen another video on the Bonobo 3D channel where a mom is, you know, listens to her son talk about it and is also very supportive.
Right.
So.
Yeah, but that's part of this is educating parents too, for, hey man, you screwed up.
Yeah.
You're gonna get you have something in the mail. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
You got something in the mail. It's gonna show up at your door and it's gonna be a pissed off son. You know, or a son that needs answers, has something to say, you know.
Yeah.
And when it's not handled correctly, there's a really good way to handle it. You can just own up for, hey, look, I don't know, I told you how my parents handled it. They said we wouldn't have done it again if we knew what you're telling us now. If we knew that, we just wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to confront my parents about it. I accepted, back then as like a 95%, regular thing to do. So
Right.
it's like I really don't blame them.
No,
It's
exactly.
like that's a huge percentage of people to try to go against,
Absolutely.
right? So, um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
it
the
was,
way it came up for us was, so why didn't you have him circumcised?
yeah,
Well, because, or it was something like that. It was just like, yeah, we just
yeah,
didn't do that. Oh, you didn't?
yeah,
No. And here's why. And we learned this after not doing that. We learned this, and this. Oh my, we didn't know that. We had no idea. And in fact, if we knew all those things, we never would have
yeah,
done that, you know?
yeah,
And then I'm like, why did you guys do it? But what the doctor said, that's
yeah,
what we do,
yeah,
and your dad's that way.
yeah.
So
Here, sign this.
exactly.
No information, just here, sign this. You need,
Yep.
you need to sign off on having part of your son's genitalia cut off. So,
That's terrible. Absolutely terrible.
yeah, and according to Intact America, they did a survey or whatever, and it's like 90 some percent of the hospitals, 94%, I think, still, ask the question. So it's like, the Intact America says, don't ask, don't sell. Like if you're asking there, you're kind of selling. Just the fact that
Mm,
you asked, it just kind of
right.
puts it in the person's mind. It's like, well, yeah, maybe, yeah, I guess, of course,
Right. Right.
So yeah, that's it's kind of like, hey, you want fries with that?
Well, yeah. Now that you mention it, of course.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that sounds really good.
Right.
Um, yeah, and you use the word circumcision, so it sounds like it's a good thing.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
That's good,
But do you
right?
want to preputially amputate your kid? Do you want to
Yeah.
generally mutilate your kid?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. You want the premium genital package? Jesus, dude. God dang. It's terrible.
Yeah. So the next thing is about co-parenting. I'm kind of curious. Did you and your wife have a tough discussion about this, or was it pretty smooth?
Oh, it was pretty good, man. Me and her saw eye to eye on it. It was really
Yeah.
solid. I was able to look at her and she grounded me. She's like, whatever you're thinking right now, I think you're right. Like the connection between the eyes was like,
Yeah.
oh, we can walk out of this bitch, huh? Like, let's
Yeah.
get the fuck out of here. And like there's that attitude of like,
That's
yeah, fuck
great.
this place. It was,
Yeah.
yeah, she got it. She had no intention of causing harm
Yeah.
to her baby.
One of the things I see a lot, and I'm sure you've seen it too on Twitter. I let my husband make the decision because he's the one with the penis. Like, does he still have his prepuce?
Right.
Did he grow up with his prepuce intact?
Right.
Like,
Right.
oh no. You know what? Women have a prepuce too. Look it up. Check it out on, it's called the clitoral hood. You
Yeah.
have that. So yeah, you should have a voice in this too. So, and
Wow.
so yeah, really someone that has lived their entire life without a body part should not be deciding whether their child or anyone for that matter should be able to keep theirs.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make
Yep.
sense.
Absolutely.
So, so this is the co-parenting section of the relationships, and there are cases where things have led to divorce over this topic. Jessica and James Rigdon are I think probably the most popular story where they came really close. I mean, they have multiple videos where they talk about their journey, where they got into the battle about this because James really, really wanted it.
Okay.
But he didn't completely understand why.
Right.
Jessica is the RN, the nurse, so she was very, very much against it, and she was at first she wasn't going to take a solid stand, but the more she got into it with him, the stronger the stand she took. So
Right.
good, good for her.
Very good. Very good. Well, and typical dad, right? He doesn't know why he wants it. Just like, yeah, that's how it
Yeah,
gets done.
yeah. I am done. Let my son be done.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, and he ended up becoming a very big part of Blessing Men for a while there. He was on the board and everything. So, yeah, you can find videos where he there's one video out there where he actually spoke with a doctor, I guess a retired doctor or whatever, but a Jewish doctor too, um, where he was explaining how he used to be for it and then now he's way against it and why, and how he went through meal stenosis and all this other stuff too.
Right.
So good on him.
Nice.
Okay, so I already kind of covered this next one, which is the mother-child bond, because it kind of coincides with the child-parent trust. But again, the child is supposed to bond with the mom. The first several hours after birth is really important.
That's right.
That part. And you can even find videos and stuff like that where they're looking face to face, and they the baby recognizes the mother's voice, and you can tell that's mom very early on, all that. So they need to stick together as much as possible. My wife is actually a little bit peeved because she had to go through a little bit of surgery afterwards. So I ended up holding our oldest son for the first couple hours.
Wow.
So and she swears that he's bonded to me more than her because of that, because of those first couple hours.
Could be so, right?
Yeah.
Could be true.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
and again, that's also discussed in Ron Goldman's book on circumcision, the hidden trauma.
Right. It's a critical time.
Yeah. Now this one might gross people out. Pedophilia is a very hot topic. I know I've come across people that think that all pedophiles should just be shot on sight, stuff like that. But I have this theory about pedophilia and how this practice contributes to pedophilia. Now, first of all, a lot of intactivists, autonomy advocates, think that this whole thing is based in pedophilia in the first place. But that aside, if a man is missing a large percentage of his erotic tissue, then he has to depend on other things to enjoy himself.
Right.
And I see this a lot, particularly in the U.S. media. You'll see like movies talking about women doing their Kegels. You know what those are, right?
Yeah.
Where they tighten things up down there, right?
Yeah. It's vagina muscle or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And also women getting labiaplasty or reconstructive surgery down there to make things tighter after they've had birth. It kind of goes along with the Jessica Penn thing too. And younger women having tighter vajayjays. And somehow that's attractive because men want that tightness. Well, why do those men want that tightness? Oh, because maybe they're missing something.
Right.
Maybe if they had everything, they wouldn't need that so much.
Right. Exactly.
So they want that. Now they're wanting that pressure to feel good.
Exactly. Right.
So again, that's not a proven thing, but it's a theory, and I think it's a plausible theory. So,
yeah, I think there could be something there to that. Well, and like you were saying too, beautiful dog, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm a bit of a dog lover myself.
Oh, yeah.
That Saint Bernard.
Yep, 135 pounds.
Man, he's beautiful. She.
Mishka is her name, which means little bear in Russian.
Oh, she's great.
Yeah.
I have a black lab.
Oh yeah, they're fun. They're a little rambunctious, but
oh, he's awesome.
Yeah.
I take him hunting with me. He's about 5 years old now.
Oh yeah.
He's 4. He's 4. And he's not much good for hunting though. He just scares all the game away,
Yeah.
He has fun though. He has a good time.
Dogs, but yeah.
He has a lot of fun. But like you were saying about the the brain being your largest sex organ. And you're talking about pedophilia. Yeah. And well, when you're missing something and other things maybe occur in development too. Yeah, you maybe get a little creative. I mean, maybe that's a really bad term to use, but maybe you start doing exercising some other some other thoughts, maybe.
Yeah.
Or urges, you know.
Yeah, what would be a
And,
really interesting study to do is to find out what the rate of pedophilia is in the United States versus the rate of pedophilia in, say, like Russia or China.
Right.
Where
there are a lot of intact.
or places in Europe where most of the men are intact. It's like
I'd love to know that.
it's correlation, but it's still.
Well, yeah, but when you the more variables you take in, like you look at all the variables, look at everything, take it all in.
Oh, absolutely.
You know.
Yeah.
Your best economist will tell you that.
Yeah.
It's like you got to look at everything. You can't just look at one narrow field. You have to look at everything. And I think that'd be really useful information to have.
Yeah, there's these maps online you can go to find out how many sex offenders are in your area.
Right.
It's scary. You don't want to do it, honestly.
No, I know.
Don't want to find out. That's one of those things where ignorance is bliss. Just keep your teach your kids good habits.
Just exactly.
Yeah. And then there's the doctor-patient relationship thing, and I expressed earlier how I wouldn't be able to work in a hospital, but I have problems with having a doctor treat me that supports this practice, or even worse, if they perform this practice, I just have to go find a different doctor.
Right.
But so
no, I think that's worth considering.
Yeah.
Because if you're good with that, then what else are you good with?
Exactly. What else are you going to do to me that would be, questionably ethical?
Yeah. What other crazy ideas do you have?
Yeah. If you don't see the problem with this one, you're scaring me. I'm sorry. I gotta go find a different doctor. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, and then there's a relationships between friends and family, and I expressed this earlier when we were talking about psychological impacts on advocates for autonomy or the intactivists.
That's a tricky one.
Yeah, it's I've got a family member that's totally cut me off, and my wife has a family member that totally cut her off because we tried to convince them to leave their son intact. So, and they, I don't know whether they even looked at the information we gave them or whatever. You would think that being parents of intact sons, they would, really want to know.
Right.
I would think that a parent would really want to know everything they could possibly know to make it absolutely positive they're making the best decision, especially something that has a lifelong impact. But I don't know. It's just they wouldn't, in both of these cases, they would not explain their thinking. I think they didn't want to. I think I don't know what to think about that. It's really, it's really sad to lose friends and family over this topic, but it's more important to try to protect the children.
Yeah, and I agree. Yeah, that's a really, man, that's tricky. That's some tricky stuff. That's a tricky ground to go over. You value your friendships, but this is a real thing that we're dealing with, and it's affecting people in real situations, real life.
Yeah. You have any other ideas on how this affects relationships?
No, I think we pretty well covered those.
Okay. The next thing I like to talk about is FGM and kind of sort of intersects. And the reason why and people are like, it's totally different. That's what they tell you. It's like,
no, it's not
even comparable. It's like you need to take some time to really study this, because you're
right.
Ethically, is non-therapeutic, non-consensual cutting of genitalia.
Right.
So ethically, it's the exact same thing. But as far as physical harm is concerned, yeah, of course it's different.
Yeah. Right.
But is there a reason? Is there a need to compare? I mean, do we need to have an oppression Olympics here to determine who's the bigger, or can we just say, let's cut it all out. Let's stop doing this.
Right.
Everyone. And when you look at the roots of genital mutilation, it's connected. It's intertwined. And you don't go removing a weed by just pulling one of the leaves off. right?
Right.
That weed is just going to grow back another leaf, right?
Right.
You go dig up the roots of it, and if you look at the roots of all genital cutting practices, it really comes down to one serious thing: control. But kind of roots off of that is like I actually created an image of this and I share it, but it's like aesthetics and one other thing. But you look at the roots, you got FGM out here, you got MGM up here, and you got intersex normalization surgeries. It's all about control.
Right.
And they're all these parents that make this, put their kids through this, they're worried about the same things. For instance, they're worried that their child is going to grow up and not be able to find a partner because of their genitalia.
Right. Right.
And particularly when it comes, in places in Africa, for example, their kids are not going to be able to sell off their daughter and get that dowry or whatever because she's not, circumcised, and
Right.
so she's not worth buying or whatever.
Right.
So that is so heavily ingrained in their culture, and I said so, and I'm serious about that.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets down to economics, right?
Yeah.
So if you're dependent on those economics, then it's going to be hard to stop the practice. But MGM is also very heavily economically tied,
Right.
in certain areas, particularly the U.S.
Right.
And particularly the U.S. because one thing that's kind of unique to the U.S. that's not in, say, places like Europe and Australia and Canada, where they've largely cut it out, is that we have a capitalistic healthcare system, not a socialized one,
Right.
right? So, like, you look at the NHS back in the 50s, they said, no, we're not covering this because that's cosmetic surgery. We are only going to cover necessary things.
Right.
So that's not necessary.
Yeah.
So, and that's why it dived real fast before it really had a chance to get up there like it was in the 60s and 70s here in the United States.
Right.
So, so our capitalistic system just kind of kept pushing it up, and some of the capitalism that goes on that is probably contributing to keeping it in place. I don't have any proof of this, but um, it's just a thought that, okay, so you've got these companies that sell KY jelly and other lubrications, and you got the pharmaceuticals that sell things like Viagra and Cialis and stuff like that, and they're making tons of buku bucks about this.
Right.
And if you cut out male circumcisions, then hey, not going to need that Viagra more.
Not going to need, yeah.
You're not going to need that lube.
No,
yeah.
not nearly. Yeah. Well, and so yeah, there's that. There's the lube companies and whatnot, but then there's the circumcision offices. They're making money off the removal of the skin. They what is done with the
oh yeah, I forgot about that part. Sandra Bullock's penis facial, for example.
Because that's true, right?
That's something you can Google real easy, and you'll find the Sandra Bullock on the Ellen show.
I watched it.
Yeah.
It's real funny, guys. I had a real hard laugh too, girls.
Yeah.
But
and then Oprah's Skin Medica,
and that's no joke, right?
Yeah, they use foreskins, prep uses from baby boys, and make this stuff. They get the T cells or whatever. Yeah, you can watch Eric Copper's show, and he talks about it. So, yeah.
Good grief.
Yeah, about that part. So yeah, there's another financial incentive to keep it going. So all these companies that want to keep it going, they could be hiring trolls or whatever to troll us, advocates.
Man, it's insane though too, because you pay, like, typically, like, I almost paid for that circumcision, and then there's money out of my pocket, and then then there's money to beauty. They're getting to the beauty companies to make their creams and stuff.
Yeah.
So the office is making, they would have sold probably that prepuce to their clients, their customers, and That's a lot of
I
money,
understand
dude.
why. That skin is very pure
Right.
at that point. So that's why they,
Extremely so.
yeah, it's not hasn't been bombarded by all the stuff that we've been bombarded for
Mm-hmm.
over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Our
Not to
guys.
mention that it's loaded with, good old growth hormones and,
Yeah.
from a baby, man. It's got all the good stuff in it.
Yep.
You wouldn't get that from a man like my age.
Yeah. And also, if you look at a lot of the cultures that practice female genital cutting, it's some people say that's not based in religion at all, but I guess it's the hadith. Some studying that I've done, and you can also you go out to YouTube. There's a whole section of clitoria nipples is a channel, has a playlist of a whole bunch of videos where they've done studies, they documentaries in different parts of the world, and they do cutting at different ages on these girls or young women, and it seems very, very based on religion. And if you look kind of like at the roots, you got Judaism, and then Judaism separates out into, you've got your Christianity and you've got your Islam, right? And
Right.
Islam, you've got these branches of Islam that started doing the female genital cutting. And Brian Earp talks about this really well. You can see his YouTube channel too, where he talks about how some of this goes on, and where it's like women, like it's kind of funny. So some of the people that are like anti-FGM, they're like, well, it's sexualized, it's sex-based violence, right? So this is only happening to women. It's like,
Right.
turn this around for a second, because females feel like they want to be part of this religious practice because they also want to be closer to God or whatever.
Sure.
It's like, well, if it's good for the male, why isn't it good for the female? Or there's a whole lot
Right.
of things that are going on there. It's like, so when you start seeing this, like, you can't just cut out FGM. It's not going to go away until you take out MGM with it.
Yes,
So you
indeed.
got to know
That's
all
right. Because if one is allowed, the other is going to be allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as much as they're trying to outlaw it in places like UK and the US, they're having a real tough time doing so.
Yeah.
There was a lawsuit. It was into 2018. The judge made the judgment in Michigan. He said that the federal law, the anti-FGM federal law, is unconstitutional. And at first I was like, oh, so they're seeing the problem with the 14th Amendment part of this,
Yeah.
right? Because you can't just protect one group without protecting another group.
Right.
But of course, there's an argument saying, well, males don't have a vagina or whatever, So so it didn't. That 14th Amendment thing doesn't apply. But anyways, that's a whole other argument. His basis was that that it's a violation of states' rights, and that really this law isn't even needed because states already have laws against like assault and battery and stuff like that, and they could just use those laws. And I'm really agreeing with him on that. It's like, yeah, really, we don't need an anti-circumcision, anti-genital mutilation, anti-genital cutting, non-therapeutic genital cutting law at all. The laws are already there. They just have to use them. So Peter Adler wrote a paper on that soon. So.
Oh, okay.
And you can go to ARC-Law, Attorneys for the Rights of Child, law.org, and there's papers out there that explain why, this is already illegal.
Wow.
So,
Gotcha.
unless you're kind of figuring in somehow common law.
Okay.
I don't know how. I don't really get how they configure common law. I was really, really crossing fingers, hoping that the federal judge would hear my case and that maybe it would make news and all that, because I was challenging that it's even legal in the first place for them to do it.
Right.
But that hasn't been actually tested. It was tested in Germany, and
Is that right?
a German law. This is the Cologne ruling, Cologne, Cologne ruling, and that ended up creating now that's a day. every year that comes up that is kind of celebrated amongst the intactivists. So the judge said, yeah, this is not legal to do.
Wow.
This is illegal, that no one should be doing it. And then a politician got involved.
Oh boy, here we go.
So they made it legal to do the boys. So
Freaking politicians, man.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, he outright said, yeah, that it's grievous harm. It's grievous bodily harm. So
That's terrible.
yeah. So there's a lot of intertwined here with female stuff.
Right.
Hang on just a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Where's my recording thing? Oh, okay. All right. Got two last things. Hopefully these two shouldn't take very long. So my wife wants me to eat.
Gotta eat.
Yeah.
Right on. Good
So
woman.
there's the sixth item on here is social productivity. And I like to bring this up because there's a lot of people that are spending a lot of time trying to advocate for genital autonomy, and then there's also the time that the genital mutilators are spending cutting genitals.
Right.
If you could just imagine all that time that's being used for that, if we were to redirect that to like curing cancer,
Right. Yeah.
giving more people massages,
Right. Sure.
or working for Uber and Lyft and making rides around town more convenient.
Yeah.
There's so many areas in the workforce where there's lacking people. It'd be great to see more people doing that stuff and making things more affordable for everyone and making
Man, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
There definitely are better things to do.
Yeah. I hope to see the end of this someday, so I can actually
we go to Mars. Spend some time figuring out how to get to Mars.
Yeah. Yeah, that's much. I'd much rather see people doing that.
Yeah, no joke.
For sure. And then the very last thing, but definitely not the least, this is a very important thing. I actually think that this might even be worse than getting preputially amputated, and that's forced retraction.
Is that right? You think it's worse?
Yeah, because when you think about it, if you keep getting forced retracted and then putting back up, and then things grow there, or things like permanently grow there, and they can't like retract anymore, then you take it to the doctor. It's like, oh, the doctor says, well, that's phimosis. It's not really. I think there's two kinds of phimosis. There's a phimosis where the foreskin is really tight.
I see.
And some doctors will say, well, he's 2 years old, he has phimosis because it's not retracting yet. No, he's just not separated yet.
Wow.
But then I think there's the other kind of phimosis where things have grown together in there permanently, or like scar tissue has grown in there, and they actually have to like cut things away. And I don't know what kind of, if they're cutting things away, or if they even do a preputial amputation, they're still having to cut that prepuce that has grown onto the glands.
Yeah.
Doesn't have the stuff in there that's supposed to break away over time, but it's actually scar tissue at this point. How is that damaging the glands? I don't know. I really don't know. For sure, but it scares me to think about forced retraction, and then the body trying to heal itself over and over and over again.
Right.
Is that causing more and more buildup on the glands? I don't know. It would be interesting to do a study of men that were cut as adults versus men that were cut as babies, and see what the sensitivity of the glands is between them. And I don't know. I don't think the Sorrells study has actually differentiated between those two.
Right. That would be useful too.
Yeah. Another study.
Man. But if they spent too much time learning something, they might actually learn something and then find a reason to, okay, yeah, we do have to stop. And that would be bad, right? We don't want any reasons to stop doing this.
Yeah.
Good grief. Let's just keep telling everybody it looks better.
Oh my gosh. I don't think so.
No.
I'm sorry, but I don't look at mine anymore. And now that I know how things are supposed to work, mine just does not look good.
Right. Yeah.
I think
I don't,
that-
it's frustrating. I look at myself and I'm like, that's not me.
Yeah.
You know, look, and the funny thing is that I don't really think that the male penis is a good looking thing anyways. It's kind of ugly in my opinion. You know, so it's like I don't care if it looks like a turtleneck or whatever the fuck you guys want to call it. Like, you know, whatever. My face ain't beautiful either, but I'm still gonna walk around with it, you know? Like it's just such a silly reason. It's dismissive and it's minimizing.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree. So. All right, man. This has been an absolute honor. You're the first intact or cut dad of an intact son that I've had a chance to interview on this. So
Awesome. Cool, man.
I was really looking forward to this. This
Cool,
is
man.
really great.
Awesome. Well, hey, the pleasure is all mine, dude. This was really cool and very valuable for me. And I can't wait to check out more of your stuff on YouTube and binge out on that stuff. So I'll be
Lots of hours of stuff out there. I mean, as you can see, this interview lasted about a little more than 2.5 hours. So
yeah,
and that's
cool.
how they often go. So
right on.
All right, man. Have a great day. Thanks again.
Thank you. You too. Thanks for your time. Enjoy that California weather.
Oh, we'll do.
All
All right.
right, man. Good deal.